Chapter 121. Damn it. I can't stop it. The ice spirits dance and sing around me. The incantation that comes out of my mouth spreads through their singing, resonating with the entire world. It's just like how a skilled knight can ride a war horse to perform all sorts of tricks, while a rookie knight would often be thrown off the horse and dragged along. Right now, I am that unlucky rookie knight who is being dragged along. Furthermore, the more ferocious a horse is, the harder it is to tame. Once a top-tier forbidden spell starts, it's hard to end. It's just like how a rocket can't stop once it takes off. My past experience and urgent judgment made me careless. The difference between the living and the dead caused the incantation to deviate from the start. When I release a super forbidden spell that exceeds my standard, when I use the black staff as the source of magic, I turn from a knight to a rookie who is being dragged along. Even I myself become a part of the forbidden spell. The elated dancing ice spirits also bless me with ice. Using the forbidden spell once again, my comprehension of the power of ice and snow continues to increase. At this moment, on my interface, the soul imprint of the ice treader is recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. 7%, 14%, 30%. What kind of joke is this? I don't see you guys moving normally. Why are you guys causing trouble at this crucial moment? In order to prevent the forbidden spell from going out of control and turning into a bomb that could explode at any moment, I unhesitatingly put all of my skill points into the ice skill tree. Ice control, bone-chilling chill, and other talents lit up all the way. As long as it's a necessary skill under the Ice Aeon skill tree, I would crazily add points into it. The effect of putting these skills into it was instantaneous. Although I am still far from Ice Aeon, the mastery of these ice skills gives me some confidence in casting forbidden spells. At the very least, I don't have to worry about accidentally turning myself into a bomb. However, blessings don't come in pairs. At the same time that I solved the problem of self-destruction, a new problem has appeared. In my eyes, the entire world has turned into glaciers and icebergs. Other than ice, there is nothing else in this ice field. All life is sleeping under the snow. This isn't an illusion, but the effect that the forbidden spell is about to achieve. The ice spirits are happily telling one another about the beautiful future that they are dreaming of. However, if the snow elves liked it, the living would definitely not like it. Just as the system said, if I really used a forbidden spell, I would probably be able to save the coffin. Perhaps even my physical body and soul would be frozen here, and my endless reincarnation would finally be able to rest. Irene Bela, knock me out. Hearing my command, the cute frigid moss snow girl transformed into an ice demon in midair. But before she could land, the black skeletal hand grabbed her and hesitated for a moment before tossing her far away. My god's might projection automatically acted as my defense. If it wasn't for the fact that I instinctively treated Irene as a trustworthy comrade, that gigantic hand probably wouldn't have just flung me away. It would have directly crushed me to death. 82%, 89%, 91%. The restoration of my soul imprint was also nearing its end. The good thing that I should have been happy about in the past was like a talisman that hastened my death. I could feel that when the ice treader was completely restored, it would be the time when Ice Aeon was blasted out, and it would also be the time when I breathed my last. If even my life force was turned into the driving force of the forbidden spell, then it would be unreasonable for me to not die. Just as I was despairingly awaiting the arrival of the final judgment, the nine-headed dragon actually made a heroic sacrifice by biting off 6 of its own dragon heads, forcefully changing the direction of the dragon's breath so that the lethal breath would be directed towards me. I was immediately overjoyed, and I almost wanted to hug this ugly dragon head and give it a kiss or two. That's right, I was overjoyed, not angry or fearful. The forbidden spell on my side had already reached the stage where it would automatically be cast. Just like how it chased away Irene Bela, It would also instinctively make judgments to eliminate any sudden situations that might hinder the successful casting of the forbidden spell. At this moment, when a similarly threatening offensive spell was coming at me, if I didn't guess wrongly, there was only one way that it could respond to it. Let us bring about an eternal end to the living. Ice Aeon. As expected, the ice breath was released in advance, colliding fiercely with the ball of dragon's breath in front of me. The clash between the forbidden spells was abnormally strange. The collision of ice and dragon's breath brought about a whirlwind of death. Everything caught in the whirlwind would first freeze and then shatter into pieces. The river here was completely destroyed. Right now, the river became dry, and the river water became ice shards. A blinding white light stole the sight of mortals. By the time I recovered my strength, all that was left in front of me was ruins. I should be thankful that the previous flood had driven away all the residents of the dock. The impact of the forbidden spell before me had completely destroyed the entire dock. Although both were incomplete forbidden spells, I still had the absolute advantage. I was still able to catch my breath on the cliff, but half of Hydra's body had already been frozen solid. 2 of its dragon heads had already turned into ice shards amidst their wails. This was the best proof that I was the victor. If it wasn't for the fact that it had used all of its life force to protect its final main head, it was likely that this ancient demon would have died as well. Without going through the final stages of the forbidden spell's compression, purification, fusion, resonance, and many other processes, the current Ice Aeon was incomplete. It was precisely because of its incompleteness that I was able to survive. I collapsed on the ground. All of my physical strength and magic power had been sucked dry. My transformation had already been automatically cancelled, but I was unable to get up. However, I knew that we should have already won. In the name of my Lord Womians, I bestow upon you the duty of a just knight. The inheritance ceremony had already ended, and the torturous 4 minutes had come to an end. Roar! Even though only one head remained, Fiora still roared in anger and unwillingness. He had already noticed that Basra's power was greatly increasing in the distance, and he could faintly guess what was about to happen. Hydra, who only had 1 dragon head left, discovered that it was the end of the world. However, a scene that left everyone speechless happened. While his power and power level rose rapidly, the body of Valkyrie, mentioned in Longtu's chapter, which was only at the level of a semigod, actually started to disintegrate. Specks of golden light circled around him. Calmly looking at his disintegrating physical body, Basra knew that it was time for him to return. Since he had accepted the law job, he didn't know what he would encounter when he returned. Although it is a pity that I won't be able to witness the end of this little snake, to be able to comprehend to such a level, even if it was only for an instant, is worth it. His legs had already disintegrated into golden light, but Valkyrie still calmly took out his sword and spear. After hesitating for a moment, he tossed the spear to the young female knight who had been looking at him with reverence. Keep it as a record. His name is Dragon Slayer. I admire your courage in charging at an evil dragon. You should be able to use him one day. Then, Basra took a look at the scenery of the mortal world, and threw his sword towards the sky. This time, the golden sword didn't suddenly change shape or flash with lightning. Even the tail of the sword began to dissipate in the golden light. However, in the eyes of everyone, the sword couldn't be resisted at all. It was fated to be the end of the dragon. Basra, who threw the sword, didn't even aim. He knew that the sword would eventually land on the dragon's body. At that moment, he came into contact with the realm of true gods and infused the special divine power known as Dragon's Death into the sword. That was the divine power that he had just mastered. As the price for mastering the forbidden power, he returned to the realm of gods after the golden light dissipated. Just as the vanished Valkyrie Longtu said, not being able to witness the end of the 9-headed dragon was his only regret. However, in his heart, When this attack that reached the realm of gods was thrown out, Fiora's was already destined to perish. At this moment, Hydra, who was born as a ferocious beast, didn't have the resolve to accept the end of the world. Even at the brink of death, he continued to struggle, resisting against the fate of certain death. The premature disappearance of great judgment allowed him to regain his freedom. However, the frozen half of his body restricted his mobility. He wanted to bite off his main head to escape alone, but it was a pity that he didn't have the strength or the dragon head to do so. It's over. Finally, the despairing Hydra actually shed a huge tearball. He knew that he was nearing the end. It's over. We finally won. We survived. This was the joy of me and the others. But suddenly, something inexplicable happened. A red figure fiercely collided with the long sword in the air. Ah! I curse you! Darned celestial tower! Darned Lamos I! I will make sure that you accompany me in hell. Without a doubt, the red figure who sacrificed himself to save the nine-headed dragon is the fallen Marsalit. However, he isn't a good person who sacrificed himself for the sake of others. He was thrown down by someone to block the spear. The knight who was guarding Marsalit had already fallen into the water, unconscious. Under the guidance of the remaining god power, the weakened Dragonslayer's sword still pierced into Hydra's body. However, the effects of a semi-god as a shield is miraculously good. Even though the gigantic body of the nine-headed dragon was reduced to ashes, the remaining half of the main dragon head started to regenerate. Yaya! Fool, fool! The malicious-filled cry of the crow reverberates in the air. Then, after a distortion, it morphs into a familiar silhouette, the local guild leader of the Celestial Tower, Lamos I. Having colluded with the Seafolk, he had viewed the Seafolk's attack as a golden opportunity for revenge. Thus, he stared fixedly at the church, waiting for an opening. At this moment, he had been patiently waiting for an opportunity. Indeed, by making a move at the crucial moment, he was able to turn the situation around. Seeing that his vengeance was about to be avenged, Lamos I smiles widely. Behind him, the nine-headed dragon started to regenerate once again. Without the dragon sealing chain sealing it, even if there is only one dragon head, as long as he is given sufficient time and water, he would be able to return to his full form. Unless we completely destroy the main dragon head before the second dragon head regenerates, otherwise we will end up as his food. At this point in the battle, we were actually taken advantage of by someone else. This really leaves us in despair. Yet, in this desperate situation, Renée, who has been fighting against the fear of death, stands up. Without saying a word, she jumps onto Shiva's transformed heavy boar, raises the dragon slaying that she just obtained and charges towards the undefeatable dragon. I didn't think that I would have to use this spear so soon. Everyone, it's not the time to despair yet. As long as we never give up, there is still hope. Frigid Maw transforms into the standard equipment of his former country's cavalry. The mist war flag at his back unfurls in the wind. That unyielding wall of defense in the howling wind is as sturdy as ever. The figure of the Mist King leading the charge is just like the past. The white armored knight charges on the icy surface. The silver spear that he raises carries the determination to slay the giant dragon. The kingdom-protecting holy sword is surrounded by silver flames. Just like her ancestors, the silver-ranked Night Princess is once again challenging the hopeless situation. Even if I am fated to die, rather than cowering on my sickbed like a coward, I would rather die valiantly on the path of charging. At this moment, the Night Princess finally understands the seemingly stubborn maxim recorded in her family's record. Perhaps her ancestors also smiled as they charged towards their deaths. Even with the might of the dragon, even with the difference in strength, she knows that she will probably die here, but as long as this moment of honor exists, she will never regret it. Hopeless situation? That is indeed the case. At this moment, the regeneration of Hydra's body is about to come to an end. When he stands up once more, it will be the end of all life on land. Ha, interesting. You never know what giving up is. This is indeed the rotten temper of the Mist bloodline that has been passed down from generation to generation. Renee, if you survive this, I will admit that you are the true Mist King. At this moment, I can't let the younger generation look down on me. Thus, using my sword as a crutch, I stand up once more. Irene, who has returned, turns into a pair of wings that follow me as I charge forward. What is that? I will lead the charge. I am the only one on my side. Following Princess Renee are the royal knights of the Mist Kingdom. They know that they are nothing in front of the nine-headed dragon who is about to recover to his peak. However, isn't this desperate yet heroic charge the glorious death that every knight desires? No wonder Lord always says that the knights are a bunch of fools. They really are a bunch of adorable fools. Then we, the Law faction, can't let others look down on us. Behind the knights, Kolos, who is exhausted from casting spells continuously, rides on the storm lightning. The two flower protectors, Deer and Moose, didn't fall behind. They continue to protect her from the left and back. That, Lord Kolos, at the end, there are some words that I have been holding in my heart for a long time. If I don't say them now, I won't have the chance to. Then continue holding them in. Cough, Lord Bishop, actually, I have something to say as well. Let us forget about those living treasures who were still trying to push each other back at the very end. At the very least, they fulfilled the oath that they promised their comrades to protect them. They really risked their lives to protect the most beautiful flower in their hearts. It is a pity that from the shocked expression on the flower's face, she really doesn't know about it. Then, it is a good thing that she can't speak her mind. Shaking my head, in the back of my mind, I am thinking of the final plan that I can come up with to stop my opponent. Suddenly, a voice rings beside my ear. Reporting to Queen, the preparations for Plan C are complete. Do you want to activate it? Then what else is there to say? What else is there to play in this world? Hurry up and do it. I am waiting for you to save me. What else is there to ask? Hurry up and activate it. Save me? Then, my snacks this year. I will take care of all your snacks for the next year. I will agree to any conditions. All right, as expected, there is motivation when there is temptation. The next moment, I hear the sound that I have been waiting for. Dang dang dang. Kacha kacha. That is the sound of the mechanical chains and the door being opened. In the next second, the wall suddenly opens up, revealing the hidden base. The battleship that has been prepared is already floating in the air, ready to attack. When the cannons start firing, he has already begun his assault. The so-called Plan C is actually very simple. It is just to let Heloise enter the base underwater with the key, then at the crucial moment, open the exit on the surface to launch a pincer attack. Without a doubt, this is the most crucial moment. Next, under the encirclement of the three sides, it will be a battle of numbers against the few. In the base, the only remaining mage tower shoots out a dazzling fireball. In the first exchange, it shoots down the dumbfounded AMU's eye. Following that, the mage tower shoots out a series of fireballs, and the defensive cannons of the base start firing fatal lead bullets. The high-speed Vulture assault battleship has already begun its pursuit of the evil dragon. Shoot the dragon's head, that is its only weakness. My reminder is not in vain. In the next moment, with the coarse voice of the dwarves, the main cannon of the battleship completes its adjustment. I found prey. After that familiar catchphrase, the main cannon of the battleship fires a perfect parabola after charging. Following that, the last dragon head of the defenseless nine-headed dragon explodes. Just like in the legends, as long as all the dragon heads are destroyed at the same time, it represents the true destruction of the nine-headed dragon. The body that had just regenerated turns to ashes once again, allowing me to relax completely. We won. We finally won. Chapter 122. In the past, the police always arrived late. In the operas and novels of this world, the public security knight regiment was the same. In those legendary heroes and epics, the companions of justice would always arrive after the battle. It made people wonder if they had been hiding in a corner since the beginning, only coming out to hug the thigh of the victor when the battle was won, or if they were simply waiting for this moment to jump out and snatch the spoils of war. At this time, the merfolk army, who also arrived late, met with some trouble. Spectators needed to be cautious. In a battle between semi-gods, anyone who touched them would die. These two semi-gods were no ordinary semi-gods. After a few sea giants who tried to help were slashed to death by sword winds or accidentally blasted to death by dragon breath, no one was foolish enough to try and help them. At this time, the collision of the forbidden spells was earth-shattering. The voice of Emperor Yongye resounded in the whole city. Hydra, who was like a mountain, fell to the ground. The shadow of the black skeleton king, the sky full of ice and snow, and the light of the dragon breath. If they could not see or hear it, they could really be blind and deaf. The fall of the Hydra caused all of the seafolk to be shocked and fearful. Strictly speaking, this big shot wasn't a member of the seafolk. He should be considered a deep-sea monster, the beloved pet of the Queen of the Storms. He was only following the will of the goddess to help. His accidental involvement in the battle and his accidental death was definitely beyond the goddess' expectation. It would definitely lead to a chain reaction. First of all, Lady Storm did not know how to calm her anger. This ambitious goddess of storm was not famous on land, but she was famous in the sea and among the fishermen. She was known for being unreasonable, hot-tempered, temperamental, and holding grudges. Lady Storm had been eyeing the goddess of vengeance for a long time. Her holding grudges was more troublesome than anything else. If it wasn't for the fact that she had destroyed one of her clones and was seriously injured, she might have sent another clone down to take revenge. To the seafolk, who were destined to be the target of their wrath, capturing the culprit as a blood sacrifice was obviously a rather reliable idea. However, it was a pity that due to the collision of the forbidden spells, the river had stopped flowing, and the surrounding floodwaters had even turned into a layer of ice. This made the seafolk, who couldn't live without water, suffer greatly. After all, they were from the merfolk, not the snow race. Those who were close to the ice were frozen in the water, and those who were further away couldn't stand it after a few minutes. Due to the Ottoman Empire's summer weather conditions, this time, the seafolk mainly came from the warm sea regions. Being cold-blooded and wearing thin clothing, they were actually extremely sensitive to the temperature. On the other hand, the water elementals passed through the frozen river without any hindrance. However, the moment they came into contact with the core region, they were actually frozen into ice by the low temperature. And this was only because the forbidden spell's completion rate was extremely low. If the complete ice aeon were to appear in the world, not only would Rain City be wiped out, but it would also be recorded in history. After all, the previous ice eons had always represented the fall of a certain city or the destruction of a certain kingdom. They were all important historical events. Even if it was only at this level, it was already quite a headache for me. After all, after the appearance of this signature forbidden spell, it wouldn't take long before the news of Emperor Yongye's reappearance would spread throughout the world. The only one who could deny it would probably be Yongye's successor and not Yongye himself. However, Hydra's voice would also bring about new problems. Of course, it was also fortunate that it wasn't the complete Ice River forbidden spell. Otherwise, if I didn't freeze myself, I would have to bathe in the river Styx. You have killed semi-god nine-headed dragon Emperor Fiora's. Host's contribution in this battle is 89%, exceeding the 80% benchmark. Furthermore, there is a huge difference in strength between both sides. You have met the requirements for a perfect kill. You have obtained 16489 fate points, unrated 9-headed dragon heart x1, legendary ranked 9-colored teardrop x1, legendary ranked material Hydra perfect dragon scale x4, epic ranked material Hydra superior dragon scale x32, Epic Ranked Material Hydra Tendon X7, you have successfully killed a semi-god 9-headed dragon emperor. Congratulations for obtaining the honorary title Dragon Slayer. Upon equipping it, your damage against dragon descendants will be increased by 10%. The effects of dragons' talents on you will be reduced by 20%. Dragon's attention towards you will be increased by 200%. This title can be leveled up. System notice: in order to level it up, the weakest dragon must be a legendary ranked dragon. You should look for an immemorial dragon. There will be a bonus reward. I ignored the malicious notification of the system. An immemorial dragon can easily crush an immemorial dragon like Molly. Even when I was at my peak, I didn't want to provoke them. Although this is a rare buff title, the difficulty of leveling it up is a little high. At this moment, looking at the rewards that I have obtained from the system, I am rather satisfied. As expected of a 1,000-year-old ghost who has lived for who knows how many years, Hydra is really something. As for the 89% contribution, I was stunned for a moment when I saw it. But thinking about it carefully, it isn't wrong. If it wasn't for my help, it would have been impossible for us to win this hunt of the dragons. Before the clash of forbidden spells, Hydra, who is skilled in regeneration and self-healing, was still in his perfect state. If it wasn't for my Ice Aeon, Hydra wouldn't have been able to bite off 6 of his heads. The clash of forbidden spells heavily injured him and tore off 2 of his remaining heads. That was why there was a chance that Hydra, who only had 1 head left, could be killed. Furthermore, the negative effect of freezing all water sources was much more effective than the dragon's sealing chains. It directly sealed the Hydra's regenerative ability, forcing it to use its remaining life force to forcefully regenerate its body. That was how the dwarf managed to steal the Hydra's head in the end. The risk is great, but the reward is also great. Looking at the 0 skill points on my interface and the messy ice skill tree, I wanted to cry but no tears came out. But at this moment, this kind of reward is more than enough to make up for my losses. Although the system has always been a scam, it still follows the basic rule of paying a great reward. It is impossible for an unequipped sea monster to drop equipment. Thus, the system compensates me with a large sum of skill points and precious materials. With this amount of skill points, it is enough for me to push myself up to LV30, upper bronze rank. Even after Renee's discount, it seems like it is enough for her to reach gold rank. Perhaps she might even be able to reach gold rank. After a slight calculation, I realize that I have been scammed once again. The difficulty of Renee's growth is probably only a few tenths of mine. By the time I reach gold rank, it should be enough for her to reach epic rank. System notice: a 9-headed dragon's regeneration talent is already giving you such a hard time. And this isn't even its strongest environment, the ocean. Furthermore, you are in a state of exhaustion after being beaten up by Longtu for more than an hour. Are you sure that you intend to challenge those undying in your human form? If you are sure, you are allowed to change your physical body. The system will offer a great discount. 2,000 skill points is enough. Of course I am not changing. How foolish would I be to give up this double diamond bloodline physical body that came with great difficulty and use that ungraded human physical body that can easily be capped? No, I am determined not to change. It doesn't matter if my growth is slow, as long as I am strong enough in the end. Warning: Lady Storm has already remembered you. If there is no absolute need, please do not get close to the sea, and even more so, do not enter the sea. Of course, if you insist, you can try killing other sea monsters and true god clones. As long as you are at sea, I guarantee that the rewards will be much better than this. Lady Storm's grudge is completely within my expectations. Honestly speaking, based on my understanding of her, it is already a little strange that she didn't send her clone down. As for challenging giant sea monsters and the god of storms at sea, I am not that suicidal. Warning: the appearance of Emperor Yongye has attracted the attention of the elven gods. Please do not attract any more attention, and do not enter the church of the elven gods. Otherwise, you understand. To those vengeful long ears, the destruction of the kingdom of the elves is just yesterday. I don't know if you often feel a chill down your spine, as though you have been maliciously cursed. In reality, your name has already been engraved on cursed grass puppets, and they are selling really well. Warning: the God of Holy Light has issued an oracle requesting his believers to search for the existence of the undead Emperor. Once it is verified, God envoys and Valkyrie will descend to the mortal world to hunt you down. Due to the approaching holy war, the God of Holy Light has increased his vigilance. Obviously, this divine power machine is still operating well. However, I believe that you will not consider challenging the Valkyrie Holy Knight. Don't think that Longtu is already the pinnacle of Valkyrie. There are countless heroes in the long history of Valkyrie, and many of them are feared by the true gods. Warning: the war god that the beastmen worship is warning. The sisters of joy and laughter are, should I say that I have indeed been glorious before? Just as the shadow of this person's name was revealed, a large number of powerful figures' attention flooded the system interface, scaring me. Damn it. The holy war has just begun, and they are all paying attention to me? This is going to be troublesome. News: the goddess of moonlight has expressed her goodwill towards you, and has handed over Basra to the Valkyrie palace of the god of law. Due to your hard work, the true god Womians has obtained the first Valkyrie. Womians should be rewarding you in the near future, so please continue to work hard to poach him. The god of law Womians had already become a divine power server. Going by normal logic, he should be rewarding believers of law who have contributed greatly. His actions were easy to understand, but after losing a Valkyrie, not only was the goddess of moonlight not angry, she even expressed her goodwill through the Valkyrie Basra, which was hard to understand. However, it was a pity that this wasn't the time to think about it carefully. After all, this wasn't a complete forbidden spell. Soon, this place would thaw, and when the Seafolk army arrived, I would have to consider what to write on my tombstone. Taking advantage of the current obscurity, it was best to hide in the base as soon as possible. The remaining Vulture battleship had already landed, and the others quickly boarded the ship. However, Renée seemed to have other plans. She rode on her mount and galloped into the distance. Looking at her destination, it was the broken dragon head. What happened to that lass? Helpless, I could only follow her to take a look. However, the moment I got close, I saw a frightening scene. Renée ran to the wound on the dragon head, and was about to touch the flowing dragon blood. Silly lass, you can't touch that. Are you courting death? Rain was shocked by my roar, but she felt a little wronged. But, didn't the night novels say that bathing in dragon blood would make one invulnerable? Furthermore, it would give one immense strength. Could it be that even books can lie? I was a little speechless, and immediately dispelled the idea of helping her advance to gold rank. Even though her performance just now wasn't bad, she was still a naughty brat who lacked common sense. The stronger the naughty brat, the greater the trouble she would cause. It was better for her to rest first. Don't even think about it. Have those novels ever seen a real dragon? This is poisonous blood. It can even corrode rocks. Do you think that you are tougher than rocks? But that person clearly survived. He's still absorbing the dragon blood. That person? Following Renée's finger, a half-dead person laid in the poisonous blood. It was a terrible sight to behold, but judging from his breathing, he was still alive. Marcelet? Yes, it was the blood mage Emperor Marcelet who was used as a shield. Longtu's attack had reached the pinnacle of the concept of Dragon Slayer, and it didn't pose any additional threat to anyone other than a dragon. Marcelet, who had a large hole in his chest, didn't die on the spot. On the brink of death from excessive blood loss, a semi-god could only instinctively suck blood to survive. However, at this moment, the only blood left was Hydra's poisonous blood. The current Marcelet didn't even seem human anymore. The left side of his body had been corroded into disgusting chunks of flesh by the poisonous blood, while the right side of his body was frozen in ice. If it wasn't for the fact that the right side of his body had been frozen to protect some of his organs, he would likely have died long ago. But even so, his face was one yin and one yang, making it impossible to look at. If I left him here, he would die sooner or later. However, his entire body was covered in poisonous blood. Even the best priest in the entire Ottoman Empire would likely still die. I hesitated for a moment before coming to a decision. Take him away. I'm afraid that I'm the only one in the entire world who can save him. Several minutes later, the vulture flew into the base amidst the wind and rain. When the seafolk arrived, only Hydra's gigantic corpse remained. Arledent was a small, permanently neutral country in the southwest of Ike. There were only 10 or so cities in the entire country, but most of the population was concentrated in the capital, Arlo. However, nobody would think of Arledent as a small country. Arledent was known as the Mage Country, the country of magic, and a mega-empire without city walls. This was a widely recognized fact in Ike. Arledent was a mage's paradise. Not only were elemental mages, arcane mages, truth mages, warlocks, and evil mages commonly seen in Ike, Arledent also had its own private research institute for undead magic and blood magic, which were the common enemies of Ike. As long as one didn't go too overboard, the government of Arledent would turn a blind eye. 1% of Arledent's population were mages or other spellcasting job classes. Even though 90% of them were rookies who couldn't even reach the standard of an acolyte, compared to other countries, Arledent had more than 100 times the success rate of mages. Arledent was the holy land in the hearts of all mages. By the way, it should be mentioned that in his second life, Roland had also trained here. He had even gone to school here and met Heloise here. It wasn't that Arledent didn't have nobles in this country. However, nobles didn't have any special privileges. True authority was in the hands of the mages. The academic atmosphere in Arledent was very strong. Countless spellcasting job classes learned and grew here. There were countless different kinds of magic organizations, and only the wisest and strongest mages were allowed to have their own laboratory in the floating city, the Cloud Tower. The 18 strongest magic organizations in the Cloud Tower were the true authority of this country. Their respective leaders formed a parliament called the Truth Symposium. Although this name wasn't very serious, in Arledent, even a child knew that the members of this symposium were the true rulers of this country. At this moment, in an inn in the Cloud City, a seemingly young couple was complaining to each other. The woman in the couple was the hottest rising star in Arledent in the recent few months. Last time, it was Battle Mage Hilton from the Sword of Order. This time, it's an Archmage ranked in the top 10 of the Red Sea Council. This should be the 6th this month, right? Adam, are you intending to beat up all of the Archmages in the Cloud Tower? Marguerite, this time, it was really an accident. That idiot actually dared to say that the underground world was just a bunch of barbarians in front of me. So, I decided to let him know the wrath of barbarians. Wait a moment, it's him? I'm talking about Archmage Amelia, she's a female. Oh, I remember now. Yesterday, because I drank too much, I accidentally kicked a single-horned semi-dragon. That little bastard actually dared to bite me. In the end, after I beat it up, I realized that it was someone else's magic pet, so I fought with its master. The expressionless Marguerite adjusted her spectacles, and a cold glint flashed across her eyes. This was her habitual action when she was truly angry, and it was usually a sign that someone was going to be unlucky. Adam, who had caused trouble, immediately took a step back in fright. In the entire Arledent, there is only one person who has a single-horned scorpion dragon as a magic pet, and that is Archmage Fendi from the Blue Tower. His master is my friend. Adam, tell me honestly, just how many fights did you get into this month? After being questioned by Marguerite, Adam lowered his head in silence, as if he was an embarrassed primary school student who had made a mistake and was being scolded. However, Marguerite shook her head. Silence won't solve the problem. Just tell me, the problem has to be solved. My seniority is still considered high, so they will give me face. You actually know how to be embarrassed? It seems that you've really improved. Wait, I'm almost done counting. 2 nights ago in the bar, 47. 2 days ago in the afternoon in the dining room, 48. So, it wasn't that he was embarrassed. Instead, he was lowering his head and counting the number of fights he had with his fingers. Marguerite had once again underestimated how thick Adam's skin was. Even though she had been tormented by Adam and Roland's unreliability over the years to the point of numbness, Marguerite, who had always handled things calmly, was now infuriated to the point of choking. Adam Hahn, it's only been 7 days this month, and you've already fought almost 50 fights. Do you really intend to beat up all the archmages? These are all my former classmates and juniors. How do you expect me to conduct myself? Aren't you going to be promoted to the position of Truth Overseer? Everyone on the streets is talking about it. That's the highest authority in the world, and I'm still intending to take advantage of you. The man of the great Truth Overseer, how impressive is that? Truth Overseer was an unofficial title for the members of the Truth Symposium. Becoming a member also meant becoming one of the people with the highest authority in Arleden. But at this moment, this great saint who was about to wield the highest authority had a face of helplessness. She could only stare at the man who claimed to be dependent on her, not knowing where to start getting angry. I rejected. Ah, why did you reject? It's such a pity, I can't even freeload anymore. Even though his words were filled with regret, the corners of Adam's mouth were curled up in a natural smile. From the very start, he knew what choice Marguerite would make. Isn't it all because of you bastards? Although Roland is unreliable, as long as he speaks seriously, we still have to treat him carefully. Since so many things will happen in the future, what's the point of staying here peacefully? Besides, I've already said what I need to say to my old friend. As for those tacky troubles, I'm already sick of them. Throwing away the highest authority in a country was like throwing away a problem. But to Marguerite, authority was really just an obstacle and a burden. She spent most of her day busy with political affairs. What was the difference between the glorious Truth Overseer and a busy official? 3 hours ago, the latest news from East Achi came. It is said that traces of Emperor Yongye and the forbidden spell Ice Aeon have been discovered. They hope to send experts to verify it. A few of the current Truth Overseers placed great importance on this matter and intend to send their trusted aides to search for it. It hasn't even been half a year and Roland is already causing trouble. That sure is fast. Then, does it count as my win? Marguerite nodded her head helplessly. Who would have thought that she would be exposed so quickly? Before walking on the ground, Marguerite had indeed made a bet with Adam. They were betting on whether Roland could last for a year without causing any trouble. Obviously, Adam, who understood Roland better, won. You've prepared your luggage? Where did you get the news from? 2 days ago, I received a letter from that fellow. It was a bunch of nonsense. He only said that he was doing well recently, that he was favored by women and that he had many beautiful girlfriends. But since that fellow was only spouting nonsense, even his bragging didn't feel real. It was obvious that he had met with trouble recently and needed help. It was rare to see that fellow lowering his head. I was happy these few days, so I celebrated a little. Your celebration is to get someone to beat you up? Forget it, it's all my fault. Bringing you here was a mistake in the first place. I have said what I wanted to say and it's time to leave. It just so happens that the one leading the team to East Achi this time is the Archmage Amelia. Yeah, the one you beat up previously. Let's hitch a ride then. Can we change the topic? That woman is a little scary. You really remembered it long ago, but you kept acting dumb. What did you do? Why did you make the usually kind Amelia so angry? I laughed at her pet for being too weak. It can't be compared to Roland's. In the end, she actually said that she wanted to use me as a material to create a new creation. So, I beat her up. If she was just mocking you, she shouldn't have hit you. Even though she is a former truth overseer, she is famous for her good temper. As for using you as a material for her experiments, no matter how I think about it, it doesn't seem like something she would say. That. The mockery was after I used those little fellows as a test subject. I didn't expect those fellows to be so weak that they fell apart. They are far worse than those fellows in the undead district. In other words, you destroyed Amelia's experimental creations? It's no wonder she was so angry. But even if it was for my sake, she wouldn't have said such vicious words. Although the direction of her research is hard for normal people to accept, she is still in third place in the most desirable girlfriend mage poll. Furthermore, she was already a mentor when I was still studying. Back then, she was famous for her good character. No matter how I look at it, it doesn't seem like she would say such crazy words. After pondering for a moment, Adam finally revealed an expression of realization. Back then, when I mentioned that Roland's creations are stronger than hers, she suddenly became agitated and started scolding me. She even screamed at me, "Roland? You mean that idiot who couldn't even learn Blizzard after spending 2 years? That thief who stole all of my research materials? That scammer bastard who I curse 10,000 times every day? That Roland? Could it be someone with the same name? I don't think that other than that Roland, there is anyone else who could turn a gentle lady who was smiling just a moment ago into a hysterical crazy woman with just a name. Furthermore, I had already checked the graduation portrait of the rank and confirmed it. It is that Roland. Why didn't you say so earlier? That way, it would be hard to reject her. Aren't you just creating trouble for Roland? As a former truth overseer, Amelia isn't easy to deal with. Isn't it easy to reject her? You can just slip away. Seeing how happy you are, you must be waiting to see a joke. Aren't you smiling as well? Are you going to make Roland happy again? The two of them chatted as they walked. The setting sun dragged their shadows far away. In an alley by the side, a cloaked woman was leaning against the wall, staring at them. As expected, you know the whereabouts of Roland. I won't let you go. This time, I will definitely be able to exact my revenge. Damned Roland, damned Roland, damned Roland. The stalker woman bit on her finger as she cursed crazily. Her finger had already been bitten off and blood was dripping down without her even noticing. The way she cursed crazily didn't have the slightest hint of an idol. Even the most vicious and dangerous which wouldn't act so crazily. Lady Amelia? Amelia was stunned for a moment. Then, she turned around, only to see the gentle and kind face of a teacher. Good evening, students. Are you out for a stroll as well? From a certain perspective, changing her face was also a kind of ultimate skill. When the male students who had received her autograph left happily, she turned around and her crazy witch mode came online once more. Damned Roland, damned Roland, damned Roland. Chapter 123. Even in the sealed base, it is still as bright as day. The lighting equipment is fully activated and the radiance of the Mage Tower illuminates the surroundings. But at this moment, on a flat ground, something that doesn't fit the current era is happening. Handball in the penalty area. Referee, this is a penalty, it is definitely a penalty. Damn it, ignoring me, did you take bribes again? Deer is filled with resentment. If such an obvious handball in the penalty area isn't awarded, how can the ball be played? To actually dare to roar at the referee, red handkerchief, unable to find a substitute for a red card. The gleeful Ingo takes out an old handkerchief painted red from his pocket and waves it at Deer. Friendship comes first, victory comes second. What a despicable player, but what a fair referee this is. Praise you, fair gnome referee. Beifong says calmly. But if he isn't the one who committed the handball offense, his words might be more convincing. Deer flies into a rage. He takes out his staff and is about to start a fight, but he is held back by his teammates. It is normal for a gnome to take bribes, but it would be abnormal if he doesn't. If he takes bribes, we won't have to worry about being extorted. Besides, you should know how black-hearted that Ingo fellow is. Since he took bribes, he is already shameless. If you argue with him, he might just make use of this opportunity to send more of our teammates off the field. If that happens, we will really lose everything. Didn't you say that we are going to give money as well? Why is he even more black-hearted today? That we gave 2,000 gold coins, while the Country of Gentlemen football team, abbreviated as the National Football Team, gave 6,000 gold coins. How do you think the greedy gnome will award us? Then why did Lord allow that gnome to be the referee? Isn't it better to get a fair one? I asked Lord as well. Lord Roland said that the gnomes have short legs and both teams don't want them, so they can't play football. It's fine if you don't want them to be referees as long as they are players. Are you willing to accept a player whose ball is higher than their knees? Actually, they can try being the goalkeeper. Oh, forget it, it would be a joke. Hee indeed. That's even more ridiculous. You can't even touch the ball when you jump. In any case, it's just entertainment. Even if they lose, they would just have to help out with the household chores. The two of them are amused by their own words, but they don't pursue the matter any further. On the other hand, the faces of Ingo, Kabbalah and the other goblins turn uglier and angrier as they listen to the story. Insulting the referee. Red Handkerchief, you are to be punished. Red Handkerchief, my ass, we're off stage. Is there any penalty for chatting in football? Yep, you didn't see wrongly. This is a soccer match between the Law and Donlon Principality, United, Team France, and the Liberty Gentlemen Country Soccer Team, Team France. You didn't see wrongly either. I came up with this nickname, and I just wanted to use this opportunity to vent the resentment that has been building up in my heart for many years. It has already been a month since we were trapped in the base. Even though we have sufficient food and water, the long period of indoor confinement makes them, who are used to freedom, feel uncomfortable. Their morale and mental state are extremely low. At this moment, it is time for sports to vent their excess energy. Thus, I invented soccer, basketball, badminton, and other ball games. However, it is a pity that the only one that is accepted by the masses is soccer, which has the highest difficulty. After all, basketball relies too much on talent. Furthermore, the differences between the various races are too great, making it impossible for them to play together. For example, basketball is bound to have collisions. Due to the superiority of the powerful melee races, the giants have to lower their heads and dunk. The goblins and dwarves can't even see the basket when they raise their heads. Soccer is accepted by the masses, just that everyone isn't used to using their feet to kick the ball. Thus, they are still on the same level. But even so, messy situations kept happening. The heck, Beifong, you are addicted to playing. Can't you just use your feet to kick the ball obediently? The seemingly honest man said with a smile. But the rules allow other parts of the body other than the hands to kick the ball. The tail is completely in line with the rules. Why don't you use your tail as well? Beifong smiles foolishly, his face filled with astonishment. He seems to be wondering why the other party doesn't use his tail. I am a human, why would I have an X-tail? You %% yen %. How many unlucky fellows have been angered to the point of being scolded by the captain of the national soccer team, Beifong? Heralt? Alright, it is basically the same rhythm. Obviously, copying the rules of the human soccer matches isn't suitable for the other races. There are all sorts of bugs in the game. But should I say that the name National Soccer Team is used well? The national soccer team led by Beifong is basically an expert at finding bugs and loopholes. They have all sorts of tricks up their sleeves, acting shamelessly both on and off the field. The two teams have fought for more than 30 matches, and the French team has only won 5 matches. The rest of the matches have all been won by the national soccer team. Of course, the bugs that appear in this match will be fixed before the match end. However, from a certain standpoint, it is forcing the French team, who have too few people, to continuously find loopholes in the rules. Insulting your opponent, Red Handkerchief. The goblin who has collected enough money is indeed very responsible. He immediately grabs the opportunity to send his opponent off the field. Alright, at the very least, he is the third unlucky fellow to be sent off the field today. The situation has become 11 against 19. What? The number of people isn't right. At the start, it was still 11 against 11. However, this group of gentlemen is too ferocious. Without twice the number of people, it is impossible to fight them. Even so, under all sorts of dirty tricks, the French team only managed to win a few matches, while the national soccer team continues to win. What? Am I fantasizing about it? After so many years, every time I watch the national soccer match, it feels like I am suffering. Since I am in another world, can't I just fantasize about it for a few days? Sigh, the national soccer team will only be able to enter the World Cup once again. I don't expect to win, let's just be happy with a draw. You want to win? In your next life. Just as I am fantasizing about it, the rough voice of the dwarf Lamans forces me back to the cruel reality. Thus, I start to take revenge without hesitation. Snow breath ice wall. The ice sword stabs into the ground. An ice wall appears in front of Lamans, who is dribbling the ball. Then, he crashes into the wall with a bang. The dragon skin ball smashes into his face, and he falls heavily to the ground. The rules that I set do prohibit direct attacks and hindering the opponent, but it doesn't prohibit the creation of a wall on the ground. Furthermore, the opponent that I am dealing with isn't my opponent at all. Bastard Roland, we're on the same side. Why did you screw me over? Perhaps it is because of this dwarf's ridiculously sturdy body that allows Lamans to overcome the disadvantage of being a short-legged race and become a member of the team. What he shouted is the most frustrating thing to me. I clearly wanted to join the human side, but why do they say that I must join the gentleman side? Furthermore, in order to restrict my movements and prevent me from using dirty tricks, they force me to be a goalkeeper that can't be moved easily. Could it be that before I am a human, I am a gentleman? That, it wasn't me. Look at the opposing team's Renee, she is also an Aurora Knight, so it must be them. What nonsense are you spouting? How could that lass Renee be as sinister as you? You even had to create a 3-section wall, customizing the shape of the stairs according to the height. First, you hit my knees, then my stomach, and finally my head. This old man's waist. It hurts so much, Just as the national team's teammates are arguing, the ball that fell to the ground is picked up by the striker, Cassio. In an instant, the faces of the opposing French team tenses up. Recently, the rules have been constantly changing and all sorts of supernatural and racial talents have been restricted. However, there is one thing that cannot be restricted, and that is the four-legged Cassio. The centaur, who moves like the wind, is a true ranger and ace marksman. In order to restrict him, the French team sent out the knight regiment once again, forcefully changing the football into a polo. However, it is obvious that this kind of illegal strategy is too unfair to others. Thus, after a victory, the mounted strategy was tragically changed. However, it is a pity that it is impossible to achieve an absolute balance. Regardless of whether Cassio can run faster than a warhorse, it is impossible for us to request the centaur to walk on 2 hind legs. At this moment, Cassio is displaying his prowess as a ball king. With just a few feints from his side, he is able to shake off the opponent's defenders with his high-speed movements. He is about to enter the shooting range and score a goal easily. Youngsters really can't resist praising. Just as he finished speaking, he stumbles and falls to the ground. That bastard dug a trap for the horse. There are actually horse tripping ropes, you guys are too vicious. Do you think this is a battlefield? Where is your sportsmanship? Watching from the back of the field, I touch my nose and don't say a word. It seems that I remembered it when we were chatting last night, so I mentioned it to Renee. I didn't think that they would really do it. Looks like Rule 643 has been confirmed. You are not allowed to tamper with the field before the match. Every match, there are 40 to 50 new ways to cheat. The current football rules are as thick as a phone book. I reckon that if they continue messing around like this, when the final version of the rules is confirmed, just the rule book alone will fill up a bookshelf. When the time comes for the new players to go on the field, they will first have to take a written examination of the rules. If they don't score 60 points, they are not allowed to go on the field. After the written examination, they will be tested on the field. They will have to dribble the ball, turn the corner, scheme, etc. If they don't pass the examination, they can forget about killing the instructor. After that, they will give you a C photo. If you don't die in football for 10 years, they will give you a B photo. If you are a superstar, they can give you an A photo. Of course, I can simply and crudely stipulate what they can only do, but that would be meaningless. In any case, it is entertainment. This kind of lively messing around is more interesting. Furthermore, it seems that they have long treated this football competition as a brainstorm, thinking of all sorts of ways to deal dirty tricks to their opponents as the way to win. What was originally a pure physical exercise has now become a comprehensive competition where both physical and mental strength are equal. I can't wait to see how the football in this other world will develop. No matter what it will become in the end, at least it will be better than that killer tennis ball and killer soldiers. Thinking of the two failed attempts, I break out in a cold sweat. I have stipulated what they can only do in those two events and sealed off most of the loopholes. But in the end, the football competition developed in a strange direction. Since I can only serve according to the rules, I will swing my racket with all my strength. Take this, human and pet as one, white whale serve. The swing of the young Aurora Knight is very elegant. The swing of the snow giant after transforming is very powerful. However, looking at the tennis ball that shatters steel on the spot, if it isn't for the fact that it is off the mark, someone might have died on the spot. It is time to show you my true skills. Take this, vanishing magic ball. Out of the millions of golden balls, only one is real. Golden ball, your sister. It is obviously a gold-ranked bow and multi-arrow. What do you mean by only one of them is real? What is with the tennis balls that litter the ground after the ball lands? Cassio, make it disappear for me. Take this, the blade slashes the flesh, the heart slashes the soul, razor serve. Do you think that just because you say that it is a razor, it is a razor? Where are your balls? I can only see the sword chi. Just because you use your racket to throw the sword chi, others can't see it. I know this move as well. Take this, whirlwind chop serve, let's see if you die or not. It is fortunate that the balls are specially made from dragon skin. Otherwise, they would have long been smashed into smithereens by their brute force. Very quickly, no one plays these two games anymore. After all, other than those few perverts, everyone still treasures their lives. After that, I summed up the lesson. Due to the rigid rules, I can only increase my strength when serving and receiving the ball. In the end, each ball is heavier than the one before, and each ball is stranger than the one before. In the end, it is only a matter of time before someone dies. Let's forget about the killer tennis ball. It should be safer for the players and spectators to shift our attention to how to cheat. However, reality has already proven that safety is relative. If one is forced into a corner, there will be Nash's tooth, Malone's elbow, Suarez's tooth, Suarez's hand, and so on. However, no matter what happens, at the very least, everyone loves to play. This shows that this strange football game still has a future. Who knows, if it were to spread to the mage country, there would be a group of mages riding on brooms and playing basketball in the air. Then, there would be someone in charge of hitting the opponent down from the broom. There seems to be such a thing in my memory. It was invented by a mage from another world. I think it's called Quidditch. While I was searching through my memories and spacing out, the French team picked up the ball and passed it in front of us. Then, a knight powerfully volleyed the ball. Snow breath wall of ice. The ice sword descended, and the entire front of the goal was blocked by an ice wall. The French team's shot was unable to enter the ice wall at all and was directly deflected by the ice wall. It was obvious that this was cheating. This method of piling up obstacles in front of the goal would definitely be banned in the future, and it could only be used once. Rule 644. You are not allowed to tamper with the field's terrain during the match. Damn it, there's one less loophole for me to take advantage of. While I was smiling at my dejected enemies and destroying their confidence, I was feeling depressed that it was getting harder and harder to find loopholes. In the next second, a sudden thunderstorm shattered all of my ice walls. Snow Breath Wall of Ice is a 4th circle spell. He doesn't have much magic power, so he can only cast it a few times. Don't be discouraged, everyone. Continue. Kolos's shout immediately boosted the morale of the entire team. However, I frowned. Of course, it wasn't because of the group of youngsters who were charging madly in front of me. Rule 645. The spectators are not allowed to interfere in the situation of the match. Even the cheerleaders are here to help. This is too much. Kolos, who was wearing a short skirt, was pushed to the position of cheerleader by the crowd. However, she had always wanted to be on the field. At this moment, Renee, who was dribbling the ball, was already in front of me. However, I didn't have any intention of stopping her. Ouch. It hurts. My tail is bent from the impact. Yes, the reason why I wasn't worried at all was because of my gold medal defender, Bayfong. Her ult. With him around, breaking through the goal wasn't a strenuous task. The first thing you have to deal with is the endless underhanded tricks beneath his thick skin. This time, I only stepped on his tail. I realized that he intentionally extended his tail to the feet of others. This fellow just laid on the field and pretended to be injured, then, red handkerchief. How could Ingo, who had been bribed, miss this opportunity? A red handkerchief turned the situation around once again. The presence of this referee was simply too strong. The boos from the side of the field resounded through the clouds. Rule 646. If one side strongly disagrees, through the votes of the audience, the referee will be allowed to be replaced. While both sides were messing around, the match was already nearing its end. The national team was leading 30-9. You didn't see it wrong. It is much easier to score a goal like this than in a normal match. It's time to end it. If we don't end it soon, the French team's goal tally would reach double digit. Referee, let's make a substitution. I'll go down, let Grim go up. Just as he said that, the field, which was still in an uproar just a moment ago, turned silent. Then, the moment a tall figure stepped onto the field, the surrounding spectators collectively took a few steps back. After all, his appearance on the field a week ago was simply too shocking. At that time, I shouted, "This is the crucial moment, everyone go up together and get rid of them." That fellow actually pressed a button on the spot. Then, boom, boom, the entire field and all the players on it were sent flying. Although he controlled the gunpowder very well and almost no one was injured, the chili powder and pepper were not easy to deal with. After the smoke lingered, many people had red and swollen eyes and coughed for 2 to 3 days. At that time, Grim was beaten into a pig's head and was immediately demoted from a main player to a substitute. Afterwards, I found out that because I mentioned that the field was like a battlefield and that we had to be prepared in advance, that fellow actually used it as a battlefield. The night before, he dug a hole in the field and arranged 900 small goblin bombs evenly on the field. As a result, the explosion design was ingenious. Although no one was seriously injured, it was inevitable that the match would be suspended for 3 days. Even many spectators were caught up in it. Although the use of explosives on the field was now prohibited, Everyone was reminded of the previous tragedy when they saw his towering figure. It was still fresh in their memories. Grim, I'll leave it to you. Get rid of them. Grim replaced me. My large body might be suitable for the goalkeeper position, but in reality, Grim doesn't even know how to defend a goal. I didn't ask him to go up to be the goalkeeper. Right now, my main goal is to quickly find a safe place to escape. Don't worry, everyone. This time, I didn't bring any explosives. Boom. This lie only lasted for 2 seconds before the unlucky deer was directly blown away. Boom. The second bomb actually landed in the spectators' stands. This time, the spectators had no interest in watching the match and immediately scattered. The players didn't just stand there stupidly. Amidst the rumbling explosions and the background of the players flying around, the match ended prematurely as usual. The next day, this kind of dramatic match ending was still a hot topic among everyone. The figure of the sinner hanging upside down on the field became the target of everyone's disdain. It's all that bastard's fault. I lost everything. What did you bet? The French team won? Then you really deserved to lose. No, the national team is too shameless. As long as dirty tricks are allowed, the French team can't win even if they have twice the number of players. I only bet that the French team will score more than 10 goals in the end. I also bet that. It was so close. It was just 1 goal short. What a pity. But it seems that a lot of people chose that and they were all furious. You guys don't understand. The target of my bet this time was the ball game being blown up by Grim, and I got it. The odds are 10 times. Damn, you can even guess that. You're too good. But can such a bet be made? Not to mention, there is also the Teeth of Suarez bet option. As long as someone bites on the field, it's considered a win. Someone bet on it last time. This time, I also bet on that, but unfortunately, I didn't get it. Amazing. You dared to bet on it with such a small probability, and you even got it. But this time, the stadium explosion only gave you 10 times the return. Surprisingly, it's a bit low. Yeah, it seems like there's another guy who placed a huge bet on this option. I think he even bet on France's team will end in an explosion within 10 goals. He alone swept away 90% of the bets, which was why the odds were lowered. In a dark room, the lucky man who made a big bet looked at the mountain of gold coins in front of him and laughed proudly. Stop laughing, it's time to split the loot. I looked around. As my partners, Ingo, Beifong and René were all here. Their eyes were filled with a thirst for profit. Ingo, yours 1/5. You have worked hard on preparing the explosion and refereeing. Ingo laughed heartily as he kept his money pouch. To goblins, there was nothing more delightful than counting gold coins. Let's continue working together next time. Let's earn big money together. I nodded my head with a smile, but I didn't intend to tell him that due to his excessive actions on the field, he was stripped of his refereeing rights. The next referee to split the loot with me might very well be the Goblin Prince Kabbalah. Beifong, yours 1/5. You did well on the field, but I know I won't forget Brother Grimm who took the blame. As a boss, you must be loyal, otherwise, how can you convince the masses? Leave the rest to me, I will make sure that Brother Grimm is satisfied. Although I didn't know when he became the publicly acknowledged boss of the gentlemen, I still nodded my head. As long as it doesn't touch on my hobbies, from a certain perspective, the extremely cunning Beifong is reliable and nimble. He is more trustworthy than anyone else. René 1/20. Next time, you must be more serious when you fake the ball. That expression and action were too fake, you nearly saw through me, you know? Big Brother Roland, didn't we agree on 1/5? Stupid, how can it be good for a child to have so much money? I will help you keep it safe and return it to you when you grow up. Oh, okay. Perhaps it was because the princess was just playing around. She wasn't angry at all even though she was obviously cheated by black gold. Right, Big Brother Roland, Big Sister Kelly made a bet with me too? She bet that you would definitely confiscate my portion, and she even bet on the reason that children shouldn't squander their money. Heh, she really understands me. Oh no, is your big brother Roland that kind of person? Suddenly, I realized that something was wrong with the situation. Wait, how did Kelly know? Hee. You already said that your expression was too fake, so she found out. Renee hits her head lightly with her small hand and playfully sticks out her tongue. The moment she says that, Beifong and Ingo grab their gold coins and intend to escape. However, the door to the room opens by itself. As expected. Lord, you are really unbelievable. When I first heard of it, I thought that someone was slandering you. How can you act like a fair and just God envoy? Kolo's face is filled with dismay and shock, as though she is looking at her disappointing child walking on the wrong path. It wasn't easy for Momo to save up his fortune. It's you, bad Roland. But as long as Momo hugs little Rolo to sleep tonight, I will forget about it. Hee, Momo promises that she won't do anything. Really? At the very most, she will only take off his clothes. That Momo, wipe off your saliva before saying those words. She won't do anything? I would be a fool if I believed you. Little Roland, to think that you would lead Renee astray. Have you forgotten about your big sister Kelly's methods? Big sister Kelly definitely isn't venting her anger on him for losing money. That, big sister Kelly, I will compensate you for the amount you lost. Don't smile at me like that, it's scary. My armor, the Missler Mithril Alloy full body armor that I almost died for. Lord, can you return it to me? The door is already blocked by the furious debt collector. On the familiar face, there is also a familiar angry expression. Lowering my head, I ponder for a long while before speaking. You have to be rational when watching a match. Betting on matches will ruin your life. Also, humans die in pursuit of wealth as birds die in pursuit of food. You want me to refund your money? Right, Ingo and Beifong are about to escape, so please don't let them off. Lastly, don't slap my face, I still have to meet someone tomorrow. Rule 647, personnel related to the match are not allowed to participate in the organizing of matches. Rule 648, never allow the greedy goblin to be the referee, and even more so, don't allow the cunning Roland to participate in the organizing of matches. Goblin and Roland are never allowed to participate in matches. By system, I don't need you to summarize for me. Chapter 124. After the joyous play, naturally comes the intense daily work. There is a more important reason why we are staying in this cramped base. This is the cradle of the future Ottoman Empire's superweapon, the air fleet. Just looking at the equipment, industrial foundation, craftsmen and engineers, they are the best in the entire continent. According to the original plan, the Borealis should be able to float in 2 weeks. However, it is only floating. Even though the difference between a semi-finished product and a completed product is like the difference between heaven and earth, due to the existence of the contract, we can only sail it out and find an opportunity to use other spare parts to complete it. Of course, due to the difference in industrial standards, it is impossible to complete it here. Due to the invasion of the Seafolk, an unforeseen event occurred in the execution of the contract. However, it unexpectedly gave us sufficient time. If we don't cherish it, it would be a waste. Thus, the moment we entered the base, I gave the order to complete the construction of the Borealis with high standards and high quality. A poor working environment will only make the workers hate their employers. They will only think of ways to deal with their jobs. On the other hand, a joyous working environment is beneficial to the workers' enthusiasm and productivity. At the same time, it is also beneficial to the birth of inspirations. In order to allow everyone to live and work here peacefully, I thought of ways to raise the working conditions here. For example, raising the standard of food, cultural performances, football matches. In order to raise the standard of food, I even sneaked out from the underwater exit to fish a few times. With the help of Tracy's Song of Tides, the seafolk might not even know how their shoal of fish disappeared. Even if they think of poaching, they would only think of other tribes. The effects of these entertainment activities are extremely good. After all, entertainment is too scarce for the people of this world. The only flaw is that it seems to be a little overdone. Not only did it make the engineers so happy that they forgot about their duties, they were also unable to focus on their work. But very quickly, with a large group of undead assisting us, the engineers who recovered from their injuries taking the lead, and our gentleman and knight helping us, the progress increased once again. I didn't make many changes to the original design of the ship. After all, it isn't my specialty. However, as for the weapon system, I have my own wishes. 8 mage towers and 32 cannons? How can that be enough? Give me 16 mage towers and 64 cannons. No, I want 30 mage towers and 100 heavy cannons. Insufficient energy? Don't worry, I have a plan. If we don't have enough space, why don't you build turrets on top of cannons? Why don't you build smaller turrets between the turrets and the turrets? Don't think about symmetry. We need more turrets and bigger cannons. Remember, you newbie engineers, don't pursue those useless aesthetics and decorations. Put all your intelligence on how to increase the number of turrets and increase the caliber of the cannon. Repeat after me. More is beauty, big is good, caliber is justice, turrets are truth. Weak RPG, die 300 times. What? Don't you know what an RPG is? He's a fool who rides on explosives and shoots himself out as a meat egg. Alright, so far, my preaching of multiple cannon turrets has been going rather smoothly. At the very least, as the number of cannon turrets on the Aurora Borealis increases, the warships become more and more deformed and filled with the beauty of industry. More and more engineers are able to sense the beauty of industry. While working, there were already engineers shouting, "Billions of stars, billions of turrets. Without turrets there is nothing. All turrets are equal, but some turrets are more equal than others. I praise you, the great cannon turrets. But there are always people who remain unmoved. As long as we can solve the impossible problem of energy supply, the modification of the cannon turrets is still understandable. However, there is really no need for some additional work. If not for the additional decorations that you added, it would have been completed by now. The chief engineer of the Aurora Borealis, Piacenza, is a rather inflexible old scholar. He doesn't understand the modification plan that I added at the last minute. Decorations? Indeed, according to the traditional thinking of shipbuilding, to sew the precious dragon scales and dragon skin on the deck of the ship and insert the rare magic gems into the core of the ship, other than flaunting one's wealth, I really can't think of any use. This is a typical example of a layman leading an expert. In the eyes of the various experts, there will most likely be problems in the end. However, I am indeed not building a ship, and I don't even know how to build a ship. Undead creation. From a certain point of view, I have always treated it as a theoretical and systematic science. Just like how modern Western medicine starts from the dissection of corpses and the analysis of the functions of human organs, the necromancers of this world also start from the analysis of corpses. They agree to view the human body as a patchwork of parts, organs. In that world, there are already many technologies such as organ transplants, human body modification, human cloning, and many other technologies. In this world, due to the existence of magic, even a rookie necromancer is crazier than the craziest scientist or surgeon. Transplanting an organ and the like is a piece of cake for them. Finding a pile of parts to put together a person isn't as difficult as the legends say. After all, surgeons still have to consider whether the person can live through the modification surgery. On the other hand, necromancers can make do with life and death. This is also the dividing line between them. As necromancers recognize the importance of the soul, they simply come up with the equation of life equals body plus soul, and challenge the authority of the Creator without any qualms. If surgeons were to disassemble a person into parts, not to mention whether they can still live after putting them back together, as long as the news gets out, they would probably be charged with murder the next day. If I had to find an analogy, it is just like how a computer is divided into hardware and software. Necromancers also divide life into two parts. The body is the hardware and the soul is the software. As long as the body is able to move under the control of the soul, the process and whether the body and soul are compatible or not, it doesn't matter at all. Thus, just like those DIY computer enthusiasts who love to create strange machines, as long as there is a soul and a body, necromancers can play with it however they want. After countless centuries, there are so many undead creations that they can't be categorized. A high-quality body and a powerful soul is the most beloved creation material of every necromancer. Blasphemy against life, blasphemy against the gods? The only difference between us and the gods is that they are more experienced than us and their technology is superior to ours. However, we will also improve and one day, we will create an existence that surpasses their creations. The arrogant necromancers say so and they are doing so. As the most famous expert in undead creation in recent times, I have added a new theory into undead creation. Undead evolution theory. Once a rigid body is formed, it is hard for it to evolve by itself. The rigidity of a life form will cause the upper limit of one's strength to be fixed. This is indeed a bottleneck that undead creations can easily meet, but it isn't impossible to break through. My method is to first perfectly combine the body and soul, then through the modification of the soul, let the soul, which is driven by intense emotions and desires, in turn drive the body to evolve. Dang, gluttony, Omar, pride, Bastion, wrath, Heloise, greed. The reason why they are able to grow continuously is because they have a powerful and stubborn soul. Although the core of the theory is simple, it isn't that easy to put into practice. I can proudly say that only my 7 deadly sins is able to create a growth-type undead that can grow continuously like a living person, and only I have grasped the core technology. Alright, after saying so much, some of you should be able to guess what I intend to do. Yes, I don't know how to build a ship at all, so I intend to turn the Borealis into a living super undead. Precious dragon skin and dragon scales are sewn on the deck and the sides of the ship. They seem like extravagant decorations, but in reality, they are used to summon souls. As for whether intercepting Hydra's soul will incur the wrath of Lady Storm, since I have already offended her, it doesn't matter if I offend her further. Furthermore, she probably won't find out that I am the one who did it. Of course, there isn't much meaning in just summoning souls. The intelligence of sea monsters isn't high, and the soul fragments that are summoned after dying in battle are the most flawed of the flawed, causing severe negative effects. To put it simply, it would lower their intelligence and they would go berserk. Without further processing, they can't be used. So, I intend to give it an operating system, a similarly powerful soul. Marcelet, are you ready? Yes, Lord Roland. Everything is ready. Following my command, the voice of a young man reverberates in the cabin. The moment the Blood Mage Emperor breathed in the poisonous blood, he was destined to die. Taking advantage of the time when the ice temporarily preserved his life, I communicated with him. He still has an unfulfilled wish, which is to continue walking the world as a half-dead. As the price for saving him, if I am able to successfully preserve his soul and give him the power to take revenge, he is willing to serve me for 100 years. And if I am able to help him fulfill his wish, that service will continue indefinitely. Dragon Hunter Damos killed my daughter and wife. I want to take revenge on him and the person behind him. He is already dead? No, the one who died is Damos III, and the one who killed my wife and daughter is his teacher. Damos I. They are a unique inheritance, and the second was once Damos. I don't know where the second and first are, but the Emperor of the Ottoman Empire would definitely know. That family has served the Emperor for generations. Alright, before Crow recovers to the point where he can speak, it would be best not to let Marcelet know about him. Of course, since he has accepted my undead modification, there is no need to worry about his loyalty. Turning a semi-god blood mage into a fleshless lich is definitely a waste. Thus, it just so happens that I need a powerful soul to control this worship, and Marsalit also needs power. Thus, the two of us hit it off. In the bridge of the Borealis, Marsalit's lower body has already fused with the bridge, leaving only his upper body outside. The heart of the nine-headed dragon beats faintly in front of him. Following the activation of the heart, another set of energy cycle in the huge warship begins. This is the specialty of necromancers. At this moment, Marsalit can already be considered as a type of undead creature. His physical body is still as cold as ice and corroded by poison. Even though he has put on some disguise, it isn't much better. In order to prevent his current yin-yang face from scaring the children, he took the initiative to wear a mask. He seems to be closing his eyes in deep thought, but a lot of data flashes past his eyes. In reality, he is carrying out control over the situation of the entire warship, making the final adjustments before activating it. However, looking at this man who is working seriously, I was happy that the person whom I entrusted to him is reliable, but for some reason, I fall into depression. Lord, what's wrong? That, I feel a little depressed for some reason. I will be fine after resting for a while. That is all I can say. Do I have to shout my dissatisfaction to the sky and request for a more adorable controller? What a scam. Why is it that everyone else is a cute ship girl who smiles sweetly in sailor attire, but I only have a masked ship boy with a yin-yang face, the will of the universe? Is this appropriate? Can I change? Of course you can. How about Rosemary? She's a great beauty. Alright, the will of the universe wouldn't answer such a pointless question, but Heloise wouldn't let go of any chance to attack me. From a yin-yang face to a yin-yang person? After thinking about it, I resolutely refused. If we were in Rosemary's body right now, why does this sound so awkward? She might use her authority as a ship girl to peek at all the male crew members bathing. Don't insult me! I have my own sense of aesthetics and choices. What's so good about those ugly men? My taste isn't that bad. You only deny that you don't want to look at ugly men? Would you peek at those that are so good-looking? Rosemary's furious roar comes from her phylactery, revealing the wish in her heart. Once again, I rejoice that I didn't make the choice that could possibly lead to a tragedy, choosing Marsalit instead. This time, there is finally a normal person in the gentleman party. Congratulations, congratulations. Right, my lord, the area of dragon skin on the left side of the ship is 17% more than the area on the right side. It's fine. It will automatically correct itself when it is activated. Oh my lord. My second cannon barrel and the ninth cannon barrel are a little bent. Can you help me straighten them? It shouldn't be. It would be very obvious if the cannon barrel is bent. I won't be wrong. The second cannon barrel is bent by 2% to the right and the ninth cannon barrel is bent by 0.5% to the left. You will be able to notice it if you look closely. Right? Can the water bucket on the left deck be placed in the middle? The asymmetry makes me feel uncomfortable. Also, can the potted plants on the left and right be balanced? There are 3 more on the left side than on the right side. I'm not used to it. Right, can you help me straighten the portrait on the wall? It is tilted by 30 degrees. It makes me feel uncomfortable looking at it. Hearing this, I immediately understood. How could there be a normal person in the gentleman party? Recalling the day when the red-robed mage appeared, his neat and meticulous appearance, I came to a sudden realization. So it is a deep form of obsessive-compulsive disorder. All right, the endless nagging of the obsessive-compulsive disorder patient continued. From the patterns on the deck of the ship to the patterns on the sails, from the style of the bow on the cables to the pattern of the crew's uniform, all kinds of unimportant information bombarded me with fatigue. A normal obsessive-compulsive disorder patient would probably only be concerned about himself and his surroundings. However, after Marsalit transformed into a ship, his body expanded countless times. There were too many things for him to be concerned about. It was fine for his obsessive-compulsive disorder to act up, but I, who had to accept his opinion, would suffer. Left and right unbalanced? No way. Left and right unbalanced? Even worse. The left deck is cleaner than the right deck? How can I tolerate that? If you don't clean the right deck, then dirty the left one for me. Your beard isn't shaved and your clothes aren't neat? I can't say any more. Get off the ship. I began to question my decision amidst the incessant buzzing. Should I switch to a gentleman ship girl who might be spying on me, or should I continue using this nagging obsessive-compulsive ship boy? Finally, I heard the words I had been waiting for. "Milord, the preparations are complete. Should we start?" "That's great. Since the preparations are complete, let's cut the nonsense and begin." Following my command, a faint green light enveloped the entire ship. Even though no one was controlling it, the searchlights at the front of the ship suddenly lit up, as if a gigantic beast had opened its eyes. The Borealis had awakened. It was alive. On the ship, a large number of low-level undead were mysteriously melting. They were fusing with the ship's bones and planks, becoming the true skeleton of this gigantic undead beast. Next to the ship's normal energy circulation system, a green liquid was flowing in a transparent pipe. This was the poisonous blood of Hydra, which was also the gigantic beast's new blood circulation system. The dragon skin on the ship was actually slowly spreading. Countless magic runes began to spread on the ship. The gigantic beast's skin and nervous system were also progressing well. The unrelated personnel had already retreated, leaving only Heloise and I. Meanwhile, Rosemary's phylactery was constantly nagging about, "This isn't magic. How is this possible? This doesn't conform to the classic theory of undead creation and other nonsense." What made me feel helpless was that the great engineer Piacenza on the other side was nagging about, "This isn't scientific. This is too illogical. This is completely against all theories of shipbuilding." It was naturally impossible for a living creature to have two sets of systems. As the roaring nine-headed phantom began to fuse with the ship, the dragon blood circulation system and the energy pipes began to fuse. The dragon's skin and scales on the outer edge of the ship were expanding furiously. Very soon, they would become the true outer shell of the ship. The various magic runes inscribed on it would also truly function as nerves and organs. After the sacrifice of the undead creatures, the keel and deck grew thicker and thicker. Countless searchlights and probes were floating in the air. They would become Marsalit's eyes. The mage towers on the ship had an additional layer of dragon skin for defense. Those magic crystal cannons had completely changed their appearance. The cannons had an additional carving of a dragon's mouth. Judging from the dark green glow that was emitting from them, it was definitely not just their appearance that had changed. Before the Borealis was awakened, it was still an assembled ship that was full of patches. However, after being awakened, the green dragon's skin became the most extravagant paint job. The Borealis that retracted its metal outer shell made it seem like a super battleship, as well as a breathing dragon. 25 mage towers, 27 green dragon corrosive-type magic crystal cannons, 127 heavy engineering cannons. It wasn't that they didn't want to install more, but they had already piled up to 3 levels and there was no space for them. 1 dragon breath cannon each at the bow and stern of the ship. After this living dragon used its heart and flesh to provide sufficient energy for the weapon system, this floating battleship was destined to be unparalleled in the world. "That's great, Marsalit. Oh no, I should call you Envy now." "Yes, Your Highness, Envy is at your service." Can you help me straighten the cannons now? They seem to have become even more bent." "Right, I'm a little sorry, your 5th button seems to have been buttoned incorrectly. Can you change it back? It's really uncomfortable." Chapter 125. When the door under the water was opened, the water level of the entire river dropped slightly. Fortunately, the heavy rain and the tornado created a new cycle, slowing the reaction of the seafolk to the changes in the water level. When the gigantic warship in the shadows floated to the surface of the water, we were shocked by the changes in the city. The city of rain, Falohi, lived up to its name. In the 2.5 months that we were working on the final upgrade of the Borealis, countless seafolk arrived here. The city that was originally a human city had become a dream city for the seafolk to enjoy a beautiful new life. Heloise's clone was our best eyes. Finding a transparent slime in the water was an impossible task. She had sufficient time to set up countless eyes in the city. The once magnificent King's City was still King's City. The only difference was that there was a new batch of masters. The White Whale tribe was originally just a large tribe in the coastal region. However, due to the meritorious service they had achieved in this raid, as well as the great prestige they gained after their great victory, they naturally became the masters of this new kingdom. Argus I was the new name of the gigantic White Whale Man. Dasos's coronation ceremony had been reused. The Whale Man, whose original name was Argus, had officially ascended to the throne. The Platinum royalty and the Sea Country had moved from an unrealistic fantasy to reality. He and his family had become the new ruler of Falohi. Under the protection and rewards of Lady Storm, even if the new tribe was many times stronger than him, they were still his people. Falohi was the name of the city, as well as the name of the future Sea Country. The guardian goddess of this country was Lady Storm and the water elemental goddess. The layout of the entire city was arranged in a tiered manner. As the price to pay for becoming a citizen of the City of Rain, the new tribe would be divided into districts according to the race of the tribe members, such as the Fishmen District, the Naga District, the Sea Beastmen District, the Sea Giants District, and so on. The leaders of the original tribe would enter the royal city and become the new nobles who were loyal to the Platinum royalty. In a sense, this was a fundamental change to the nomadic lifestyle of the tribes in the past. It was also a forceful disintegration of the power in the hands of the tribal leaders. Therefore, even though the new life was very attractive, not every tribal chief was willing to submit to others. It was not uncommon for tribes to come and then leave, but even if they left, there would be many who left the tribe without permission in the middle of the journey. In this magic world that was similar to the Middle Ages, the permanent population and the flow of people were always the foundation of the rise and fall of a city. Soon, more and more members of the oceanic race moved in, making the newly born Rain City more and more lively. Even though the two armies were still in a state of war at the border, the Sea Tribe's new life in the city had already begun. First of all, the market had already opened, and the most popular products were the daily necessities left behind by the surface residents. Worthless porcelain, fresh fruits, and waterproof silk could all be exchanged for precious pearls and gems of equal weight. The many years of accumulation of the tribes that had just arrived couldn't be underestimated. Most of the rare treasures of the sea were indiscernible, but judging from the vigorous magic ripples, there were quite a few valuable items. However, their prices were laughably low. A myth-rank sea dragon's dragon pearl was actually sold for only 2 rolls of silk. This was equivalent to exchanging stones for gems. Even turning stones into gold might not be as fast as this. I was tempted by such a high profit margin. If it wasn't for the fact that I was worried that there would be unexpected problems, I would have long sent Tracy to exchange for more treasures. I had a deep understanding of the temperament of merchants, and I had no doubt that as long as the news were to spread, many merchants would risk their lives to trade with the Sea Tribe. By then, the technology and products they would be able to exchange for would make up for the shortcomings of the Sea Tribe. Other than daily necessities, the other best-selling item in the market were the various weapons on the ground. Even though the Alland Empire's alchemy weapons and high-quality weapons were immediately seized by the White Whale tribe to equip their own warriors, the ordinary seafolk who used wooden, stone, and bone weapons like the longswords, spears, and cleavers were a qualitative leap in quality for the ordinary seafolk who used wooden, stone, and bone weapons. In the past few days, the first to reopen were the blacksmith. Due to the massacre and flooding during the siege of the city, there weren't many precious blacksmiths, craftsmen, and alchemists who survived. They also met with many troubles. Among the sea tribe, there were only a few amphibious races who knew a little about smithing. Thus, anti-rust treatment of the blueprints became their top priority. However, judging from the long queues in the blacksmith's area, the flooding seemed to have caused their craftsmanship to return to the most primitive era. There was still a long way to go in this aspect. However, for the sea tribe, this was already a huge improvement that was hard to come by. Every night there would be a bonfire and banquet on the waterproof platform. Even though the ordinary fishmen probably wouldn't even get a piece of cooked meat, it was enough to make them go wild with joy as if they were celebrating a festival. Although it was still primitive and there were many inadequacies, this new city was developing in the direction of a centralized kingdom, just as the sea tribe had predicted. It was getting stronger every day, and countless sea tribe members were arriving every day. The newly arrived sea tribe would eventually reach the border of the City of Rain and fight to expand their living space. It was easy to predict that this would become the first battlefield of the Eternal War. Fortunately or unfortunately, the Ottoman Empire was indeed a mega-empire with a rich foundation. The humiliation of losing their capital was the most direct order to mobilize for war. Soon, defensive lines were re-established, and reinforcements from the various local nobles arrived on time. No one could say for sure how strong the army, which was determined to take back the capital, would become. However, in terms of war foundation and overall national strength, I still believed that the Ottoman Empire would have the last laugh. Very soon, the war for living space would begin once again, and it was destined to be cruel. No matter who the final victor was, this place wouldn't be peaceful for a short period of time. All of the Ottoman Empire's attention would be drawn into this. For us, it was difficult to say that both sides were friends. Our only hope was that we wouldn't be dragged into this, especially since we were currently right under the sea tribe's nose. The wind and rain that day had obstructed the sea tribe's vision. In the eyes of the sea tribe, the fall of Hydra was mostly due to Longtu and the forbidden spell. Our existence was probably still a blind spot for the sea tribe. Even so, we didn't dare to stay here for too long. It was foreseeable that as the seafolk gathered here, more and more power of faith would become food for the Queen of the Storms. When the Queen of the Storms really turned this new city into her own divine land, when the Queen of the Storms' church and altar reached a certain density, the will and attention of the Queen of the Storms would probably stay here permanently. Perhaps this underwater base would be able to block the prying eyes of mortals, but when it came to the sight of a true god, I really didn't have any confidence. The earlier we set sail, the safer we would feel. And so, on the 7th day after the Borealis completed its transformation into an undead, when this newborn undead had begun to get used to its new body, and when the first batch of weapon systems were barely usable, we set sail. An underwater channel opened up for the ship to enter the water, and the 300-meter-long ship dove into the water, slowly advancing. Dark waves rippled beneath the water. Of course, we did meet some sea tribe members along the way, but they were blown away by the dark currents before they could even touch our ship. When this flood dragon left the water and rose into the air, leaving behind a gigantic whirlpool where it had been, and the mage tower on the ship still maintained its invisibility effect, cheers rang out from within the Borealis. After all, no matter how impressive the design was, actual combat was the only way to test its effectiveness. We'll leave from the Eastern Ottoman Empire and enter the water at the Eastern Estuary. That should be the safest place. Then, we'll head up along the coastline and take off from northern Telos. Then, we'll fly diagonally in a straight line, and we'll arrive at the Eastern Principality. This is the best route that all of us have agreed upon after repeated discussions. Why must we enter the water? Can't we just fly straight? If we were to fly straight to the Eastern Principality, we would have to enter the airspace of a few super empires. I don't think that they wouldn't be prepared for the threat from the sky. Even an invisible flying unit isn't anything rare. Do you intend to meet their Dragon Knight? Furthermore, if the news of the floating warship were to leak out, there was a hidden meaning in Kelly's words, and I immediately understood it. Some things should be kept a secret for as long as possible. If we were to reveal it now, there would be a lot of trouble in the future. Kelly's suggestion was based on a risk assessment, and we could still try our luck. On the other hand, the chief engineer of the Borealis, Piacenza's suggestion was based on reality, and it was obviously more practical and persuasive. From the performance of a new ship, it isn't recommended for us to go on a long journey for the first time. After flying for a certain distance, we do need to make some short-term adjustments to the equipment to rectify the problems that have been exposed. Looking at the situation of our ship, entering the water is the most suitable choice. Furthermore, we don't have much supplies left. It should be more convenient for us to use a small boat to resupply at the coastal port of the Casilo Kingdom. Actually, I didn't have any complaints about taking a longer route, but I was a little hesitant about entering the sea again. Although the system was unreliable, it was a classic example of good things never coming true. Towards its warning of not entering the sea, I still took it to heart. Warning: Lady Storm has remembered you. Unless absolutely necessary, please do not get close to the sea, and even more so, do not enter the sea. Of course, if you insist, you can try killing other sea monsters and true gods' avatars. As long as you are in the sea, I guarantee that the rewards will be better than this. Lady Storm, the sea folk, pirates and the like who made a living on the sea would respectfully address her as the Queen of Storms. She is a member of the malevolent gods of chaos, and her divine concept includes storm, tempest, and she is also the guardian god of a portion of the sea folk. Although she has always aimed for the divine concept of the sea god, there hasn't been any signs of success in the past thousands of years. The current sea god is Oswia, an antique who survived from the ancient times. From a certain perspective, he is also the descendant of the ancient water elemental god Alos. In the Order faction, this sea god is famous for being low-key. Perhaps they might be able to form a relationship in private, but I don't think that he would still give face to Lady Storm after the eternal holy war starts. Detecting a ship entering the sea? Even the sea god Oswia is incapable of doing so, not to mention Lady Storm, who is a sea god, who doesn't have the existence of the sea in her divine concept. However, I still don't dare to let my guard down. Must we enter the sea again? Yes, the failure rate of the floating engine is over 17%. Even if the lads work overtime, they won't be able to maintain it for long. We have to stop the engine for maintenance. Alright, then let's prepare for battle. The imaginary enemy is sea monsters. Let's use that Hydra from the other day as our imaginary enemy. Even without the system notification, if Lady Storm really comes looking for trouble, then there is an 80% chance that we will meet a sea monster. After all, that queen has another nickname, Sea Monster Empress. She has quite a few sea monsters under her command. We can completely disregard normal sea monsters. Do you think that we will meet Hydra everywhere? Fine, you are the boss, you make the call. Although the others felt that it was unnecessary, based on my understanding of my own luck, as well as the system notification, it wouldn't be too much to prepare. Before I enter the sea, I still have some matters to attend to. Since we can't play soccer on the ship, those fellows are really bored to death. How many times has Ingo's alchemy laboratory exploded? I heard that yesterday afternoon, they froze a piece of the deck to play ice hockey. Aren't they afraid of being whipped off the ship? Forget it, I have some matters to settle anyway. I'll just scare them a little. Being on the same ship in times of crisis is a kind of fate. But when the crisis is over, being on the same ship requires a reason. Common interests? Common ideals? regardless of what it is, since we still hope to walk together, since we still want to call each other comrades, and since we need to use something to unite everyone's strength together, there must be a core and a goal. Eating, drinking, and having fun can also be considered as a goal. But if we were to build an organization around that, then it would most likely be a bunch of scattered sand. But in this aspect, I have long prepared for it. Why should I be the only one worrying about the future of the world? Since we are all on the same ship, let me tell you about the possibility of the ship sinking in the future. I started my explanation with these words. But as expected, I saw the nonchalant expression of those fellows. If the sky collapses, there will be tall ones to hold it up. If the ship sinks, at most, we can just go ashore. What's the big deal? Asking me how I was able to read so much information from their expressions? Those bastards have already said it out loud. I am a siren. Sinking the ship isn't a problem for me. It is just that it is a little troublesome to bring along my collection. Actually, I have been training hard during this period of time in the base. Right now, my swimming skills are pretty good. Big brother, don't be fooled by my 4 hooves. Actually, I have learned how to swim recently. Furthermore, I have already removed the horseshoes, so I will definitely be able to float. When the time comes, you will just have to sit on my back. Hey, did you hear about the latest business opportunity? The opportunity to earn big money is here. We should stock up on lifebuoys and driftwood. Stupid, what's the use of stockpiling them now? We should purchase all kinds of lifebuoys from the crew members and sell them to the original owner when the ship sinks. That way, we will be able to make a fortune. Fool, how can we only sell to the original owner? As long as they are willing to pay, we can even sell fishmen and sea monsters. The conversation between Ingo and Kabbalah is filled with the stench of money. The two of them are actually considering purchasing lifebuoys from the crew members and selling them to the other party when the ship sinks. If gunpowder comes into contact with water, it won't work. Should we prepare some waterproof containers? Grimbrat, stop thinking about your precious explosives. You should first consider whether your heavy armor can float or not. Are we going to take off the silver war song again? Lord, will the sinking be too sudden? Will we lose our luggage? If it is really lost, will we be able to salvage it? Ever since Diana got the mithril alloy full body armor from my hands and even got a mage to enchant it, Diana has been wearing the armor all day. Not only does she not find it hot, she even gave the armor such a name. Now that she hears that the ship is about to sink, the first thing that comes to her mind is her precious armor. Big brother Roland, are you worried that the ship will sink? Don't worry about it. When the time comes, we will use our strength to freeze the surface of the water. That way, we should be able to get everyone onto the ice to seek refuge. As long as no one dies, we can accept any loss. All right, Renee's consolation at the end, should it be considered as a stab in the back? Everyone is discussing fervently, but no one asks why the ship will sink. They are only exchanging their experiences in escaping, as though the sinking of the ship is already a foregone conclusion. I shake my head helplessly. These fellows are too unique. I should have guessed that this would be the outcome. The ship that I am talking about isn't the Borealis that we are standing on. It is He, the He continent. Perhaps you might find it hard to believe, but in reality, our world is about to be destroyed. Just as everyone is staring at me with widened eyes, after all, according to common sense, those who talk about the end of the world at the drop of a hat are either evil cultists or lunatic. But while everyone's eyes widen, I don't intend to continue speaking. After I finish my opening speech, I leave. The crystal ball that was placed on the table starts to display the scene that I prepared beforehand. He's 7 calamities. From the start of this holy war, our world will encounter 7 destructive calamities, and we will always be in danger. The source is the never-ending holy war. Now, the horn of the holy war has sounded once more. I am afraid that this is destined to be the last holy war. The crystal ball contains a promotional lesson that I prepared beforehand. The contents of the lesson were carefully prepared by me. This is the information on the upcoming war, but it is only the appetizer. The civil war of the humans, the rebellion of the elemental gods, the invasion of the undead, the invasion of the demons, the possibility of an all-out war between the surface and the underground. Perhaps some of them have already predicted that the holy war wouldn't be easy, but it is impossible for them to be as detailed as my information. Talking about the invasion of the undead, I can directly tell which undead planes are preparing for war and when they are expected to attack. Talking about the demon army, I have the evidence and information provided by Eliza here. The conspiracy of the elemental gods is right in front of us. As for the Underground Alliance army attacking the surface, it isn't a secret anymore. Only detailed information and data would be convincing, and the following picture is the breakthrough that I expected. Ah, what is that? Why did the dwarves' mining city, Halos, turn into ruins? I just went there last year, and the place is still bustling with activity. In front of me is a picture of the ruins after the army massacred the city. The picture is vivid and lifelike, and the precision of it far surpasses the limits of drawing. This isn't a picture of this world, it is a picture taken from an illustrated guide. Aesroan? Impossible! How can the beautiful Evernight forest turn into such a state? Galar Highlands, my rich and beautiful hometown, how can it turn into a black pool of blood and a land of filth? Who did it? The elven capital that has turned into ruins, the human plains that has been corrupted into a land of the undead, the demon army massacring on the surface, the massacre of races and the destruction of countries can be seen everywhere, and all kinds of visions of the future that would destroy the worldview are presented one by one. I swear on the name of the Holy Light that this is a vision of the future that I obtained through certain means. If we don't do anything, I'm afraid that it will become history. The majestic Holy Light proves the truth in my words. Just as they are shocked and even worried about the future that is filled with destruction, I throw out an even more shocking piece of information. And these tragedies are just the beginning. Those who die in it can be considered as the lucky ones, because they won't have to witness the destruction that would leave them in despair. This holy war is destined to have no victors. The final outcome will be the destruction of the entire world. At this moment, the picture cuts to the scene that I requested. It is an aerial shot from outer space. The entire continent is split into countless pieces, and innumerable dimensional doors open wide. This is the result of the two creator goddesses' all-out battle, and the powerful life forms that are able to survive to the very end are screaming and cursing as they welcome their final despair. Before the final judgment day, all lives are treated equally. No one is spared, no one is saved, no one is immortal, and the final outcome is complete and equal destruction. Perhaps the two creator goddesses will be able to restart the creation of the world, but the life forms of the old generation won't be able to see that day. They have already met their end in this final calamity. In order to avoid the worst possible outcome, I've been making preparations since a long time ago, and I've also obtained some progress. But now, I feel that I'm too weak by myself. I need your help, I need your strength to prevent the final judgment day from coming. Chapter 126. What was above the clouds? In the legends of humanity's oldest religions, that was the realm of the true gods, the final resting place of mortals. Above the clouds was the kingdom of the gods, and the gods were always watching over you. Mom, the reverend priest said that the gods are watching over us from above the clouds, but there are so many people below, can they see all of us? If they could, wouldn't their entire body be covered with eyes? That would be so scary. In a public square, a brat who was straightforward said so. That afternoon, he was tied to a stake and executed for the crime of blaspheming against the gods. That was the famous Little Tom's truth. In the future, it became a challenge to authority, and it became an important fuse for the reformation of the churches of the gods. As for what was above the clouds, The earliest batch of Sky Knight who went above the clouds wisely avoided this question. In the modern era, some things could no longer be hidden. The fact that the divine realm was in another plane was placed before everyone's eyes. The so-called gods are watching over everyone became nothing more than empty words in the ancient book. The gods weren't omnipotent. The altars and churches were places where their will descended. If their true names were to be chanted, they might be able to hear it. As for other information, they could only be informed through the prayers of the reverend priests and bishops. Of course, it was possible to send incarnations or god envoys down to the mortal world, but the consumption wasn't low. The unknown and distance brought reverence. The struggle between the authority of the gods and the throne was endless. Even though deciphering the secrets of the gods had always been a taboo, every country had never stopped doing so privately. The era where every country had a true god as their representative had ended. This generation of gods had given humans more freedom, but it was foreseeable that with the start of the Holy War, the space for freedom would become less and less. The Holy War had become a historical necessity. The Order gods didn't even need to send an oracle for every country to start preparing for war. After all, the other party had already attacked. In this Holy War, all kinds of new aerial units would also welcome explosive development. The Ottoman Empire's aerial fleet might be unprecedented, but it definitely wouldn't be the last. The forbidden areas of the past had already been opened up to mortals. However, it wasn't easy to reach above the clouds. Even without the existence of this forbidden area, the high altitude above the clouds was still a forbidden area for ordinary air cavalry. After all, the low temperature, lack of oxygen and low pressure were all at the same time. Even if a strong mount could withstand it, the knight riding on it would most likely die. At this moment, I was soaring alone in the sea of clouds, as though I was galloping on land. Irene Bela had transformed into a Pegasus, and the surrounding ice barrier isolated me from the low pressure and lack of oxygen. The coldness of the high altitude was nothing in front of the frigid nightmares. The advantages of a magic mount were obvious. However, the clouds were not empty. The mountain-like cloud whale in the distance was a stunning scene. Rather than saying that the cloud whale was an animal, it would be more accurate to say that it was a hybrid of half-wind element and half-living creature. It was at least 10 times larger than its kin in the sea. When it moved, it was able to whip up gales and clouds. Even the wind elemental god couldn't do anything to this gigantic creature. It was said that in ancient times, the ships and cities of the Black Nightmare tribe were also built in the clouds. They were the rather famous Cloud tribe. However, it was a pity that they were deprived of the right to fly and became pirates. I had always felt regretful that I was unable to appreciate the bizarre lifestyle of the Cloud tribe. System notice: you won't have to feel regretful very soon. I hope that you will still be in the mood to admire the scenery by then. Ignoring the system that suddenly popped up, I turned my attention to the scenery not too far away. The clouds were filled with all kinds of oddly shaped clouds. They were constantly changing. Some resembled mountains, some resembled trees, some resembled giants. They were just like the waves in the real sea, constantly changing their form as they came into contact with each other. Not all clouds were constantly changing. Under the effects of magic, some clouds wouldn't change in the slightest for hundreds of years. However, the more stable nests were the homes of the cloud beasts, and the residents there didn't seem to welcome our arrival. Even though we were running at full speed, there was still a group of cloud beasts chasing behind us. Most of them were friendly cloud dolphins. They were here to watch the show, and the little cloud dragons, as predators, were chasing us relentlessly. It seemed like they were courting death. Although they were called cloud dragons, they were actually little winged dragons that were only 1 meter long. It was evident that these little fellows with sharp teeth didn't care about our strength and intended to use us as a snack. Although Irene Bela was still far from her prime when she transformed into an ice dragon, the current her could easily deal with these little fellows by simply turning water into ice. However, I only patted her lightly, indicating for her to increase her speed and shake them off. Roar! After a low roar, the Pegasus unfurled its wings and transformed into a streak of light, instantly increasing the distance between us. Master Roland, are you very happy? I am indeed very happy. Have you realized it? Of course I was happy. Otherwise, I wouldn't have run up to the clouds for a stroll. If I wanted to hurry on with my journey, it would be more suitable to fly at a low altitude. As for the reason why I was happy, I would have to start from the leak 3 days ago. In order to ensure that the true secret wouldn't be leaked, I didn't include the high-level plans in the courseware. What they could see were the possible tragedies that might occur in the future. Other than the undead calamity, the invasion of the demons, and the underground war, the courseware didn't even mention the reason and time of the war, not to mention the methods to deal with it. What they could probably know now was that they would encounter a series of calamities in the future, and I was currently working hard to resolve them. How I would resolve them, and how much chance I had of winning were all unknown. I was inviting my companions, but it seemed that this invitation lacked sincerity. Nodding in this kind of situation where the future was completely unknown was equivalent to handing over their future to me. The trust required wasn't just a little bit or two, and the building of trust required time. I could understand their hesitation and silence. Making someone work for me with just a few words only existed in illogical novels. If someone were to say to me in reality, "The world is about to be destroyed, and only by trusting in me will you be saved. Hand over your entire fortune to me," I would already be considered kind if I didn't slap him a few times. Perhaps this is the revelation that fate has given me. Lord Roland, I am willing to serve you. If destruction is to come, we will face it together. Alright, just a moment ago, I said that the scene of a tiger trembling his underlings coming to his aid only existed in novels, but in the end, a silly lass jumped out to slap my face. Holy Knight is always the easiest to fool, and Diana was probably one of the easiest to fool among the Holy Knight. Her agreement was undoubtedly a good start, but what followed after was still a long silence. Lord Roland, actually, there is a Lich in Sulphur Mountain City who goes by this name. His relationship with you, Ingobjar's question seemed unimportant, but at this moment, it attracted everyone's attention. I hesitated for a moment. Since I decided to be honest with him, then I shouldn't spout nonsense at this crucial moment. It's me, but I can't tell you the reason for my revival. Then which legendary holy knight from 300 years ago? The legendary hero that the bunch of single-celled knights talk about every day? The final prince who left a heavy mark in history? This question was of a high standard. Looks like even though these fellows were fooling around for the past few days, they weren't idling around. At the very least, they were gathering intelligence and making plans for the future. If I didn't make up my mind to keep them here, some of them would have left on their own accord when we reached a safe zone. It's me, but I still can't tell you the reason. My admission made quite a few people suck in a breath of cold air. The comrade who was fooling around with them in the past suddenly turned into a legendary hero. Yet, the legendary hero was right in front of them, living together with them every day. While it was shocking, they couldn't help but wonder why he hid his identity and lived in Sulphur Mountain City for such a long time. One last question: what is your relationship with Lord Womiance? Comrade, our goals are the same, our methods are the same. From a certain perspective, we are as close as a single person. But since I have spoken to such an extent, those who choose to back out later will have to sign a confidentiality agreement. Even though I am playing a word game, it is still the truth. We are the same person, so naturally, we are as close as a single person. Ingo looks at the silent Kolos by the side. The bishop of the God of Law hesitates for a moment, but she still nods her head to acknowledge the truth of my words. All right, I can make the decision regarding my brother's matter. Our Safety Merchant Association has placed all our hopes on you, so you can order us around. But if it is a business transaction, remember to pay up. The famous saying of the goblins, those who are close to the ground are smart to settle the accounts. This time, it was my turn to be astonished. The greedy and selfish gnome was the most difficult target to convince from the very start. I had already made up my mind that it would be a victory if he stayed out of this matter, but he was the second person to nod in agreement. This was totally unexpected. Is there anything to be surprised about? Lich Roland has been our brother for many years, and Lord Woomians is the person we respect the most. Since both of you said that destruction is imminent, is there a need to hesitate in finding a trustworthy backer? At the end of the day, it is still a matter of trust. Even if it is the best choice to stick together for warmth, if we were to find the wrong person to use as a shield, wouldn't we just end up as cannon fodder? Back then, Ingobr agreed to it. The change in the direction of the situation was too sudden and timely. Not to mention the others, even I suspected that Ingo might have set up a trap. However, his choice played a crucial role. I will listen to Big Brother Ingo, and I also trust Lord Woomian's decision. I knew that his ascension to godhood wasn't without reason. Perhaps we are all in the same game, but I trust Woomians, the chess player. He won't sacrifice us for nothing. The moment Kabbalah's words fall, the voice of the dwarf blacksmith resounds in the cabin. Since it is Lord Woomian's intention, just say it. It is enough for us to trust him. Also, even though we are short, our eyes aren't blind. Without your help, we would have drowned in the prison. We will remember this favor. It is still normal for us to be here. But after that, Momo likes Lord Woomians the most. Alright, you should have found out about the formula of Woomians equals Lich Roland equals Little Rollo. But what is the meaning of this confession that sneaked in amidst the chaos? Is food provided? Dishu, you fool, how can food be enough? That, Lord, is there meat in the food? Once every 3 days is enough. As long as food is provided, Kaven and Dishu should be the easiest to bribe. How can we? There are so many beauties in this world that we have yet to come into contact with. How can we allow them to be destroyed? For the sake of more beauties, we will do it. No matter who it is, as long as he intends to destroy this beautiful yet cruel world, I will fight with him until my last breath. This should be the normal reaction after knowing that the world is about to be destroyed. But after so many years, this is the first time I saw Beifong so serious. That faint soul radiance shows that he is comprehending and breaking through his bottleneck. A legend-rank beast king hunter is about to be born. I was wrong. In the past, our understanding of love was too one-sided. Loving a person doesn't mean that you must possess him. Protecting all beautiful existences is my true wish. Love is boundless, kindness is like water. Goodbye, the me of yesterday, the me of today, I will comprehend the secrets of true love. The heart of universal love. I vow to protect all existences that are filled with charm, regardless of their race, age, gender, occupation, cold-blooded or warm-blooded, where they come from, whether they are alive or dead, whether they are an arthropod or a mammal. This is just like its name, to universal love. I have heard many vows before. Advancing into a legend rank is a summary and comprehension of one's past life. After advancing, the vows that one comprehends are usually the mantras of that person. However, this is the first time that I am unable to comment on it. Regardless of whether they are birds or beasts, regardless of whether they are forks or spoons, this vow sure is long, but why does it sound so wrong the more I listen to it? Ah hit. Look at my tiger folding stool. I can't take it anymore, beat him up. Safe brand bricks are on sale, please recognize this green label. Safe brand products are just that safe. Boom. Boom. The last part isn't the advertisement but the sound of an explosion. To be able to make bricks have the ability to explode, BR brothers, just how did you do it? Obviously, due to that shameless vow to protect, someone couldn't take it anymore and started to beat Beifong up as usual. Even though he was beaten up, Beifeng's great vow of true love didn't stop. The holy light of advancement continued. Looking at how long it lasted, the soul imprint that was formed was definitely abnormally strong. Perhaps Beifeng's advancement wasn't just any ordinary legend rank. Regardless of whether they are eggs or hens, regardless of whether they are S or M, alright, let us disregard that vow that is getting harder and harder to listen to. To advance to legend rank while enjoying being beaten up, this is probably the only one in this world. Even though it is as usual, it has to be said that after Beifeng's actions, the originally heavy atmosphere can no longer be solemn, making it easier for us to communicate. Should I say that Wumian's reputation is big enough? After knowing that this is the will of the god of law Wumian's, the living treasures of the underground city joined him readily. However, as expected, they were rejected. Can I follow you temporarily? This kind of decision requires time. Tracy's decision can be considered polite. Most of the Ottoman citizens also made the same decision. However, there are still quite a number of Ottoman citizens who requested to disembark after some hesitation. The only fortunate thing is that there aren't many of them. The accumulation of trust requires time. Towards the suggestion of Tracy and the others, I agreed immediately. So be it. It is normal to be lured onto the ship at any time. However, I don't intend to force those who disembark. Sign a confidentiality contract with me, and I will allow you to disembark. However, you are not allowed to return to the Ottoman Empire within a year. Otherwise, it will be hard for you to explain your sudden disappearance and reappearance. You don't want to be locked up in the dungeon of the intelligence agency and forced to confess, right? The final result was better than I expected. Only 17 people insisted on disembarking the ship, and they are all talents that I poached before the fall of Kajisi. It can be said that this operation of persuasion was a complete success. Why wouldn't I be happy? I was immediately overjoyed. When the members of the Church of Law and my knight arrive, with these fellows as the backbone, many things might change. Perhaps we might be able to build a decent place. Sulphur Mountain City on the surface? It seems like a good choice. Of course, no matter how happy I am, if it is just a spur of the moment, I wouldn't be allowed to stroll around alone. There is a reason why I am traveling alone. I have already reached my destination. The collapsed mouth of the gigantic lion was still fresh in my mind. The events related to this location resurfaced in my mind. That rebellion completely subverted the understanding that the high-tier undead had of their own race. Near the entrance, two familiar figures draped in wide black cloaks. Their heads were lowered as they busied themselves in the ruins, seemingly searching for something. Camisia, Fandirk, why are you here? Yes, the two figures in front of me are my knight Camisia and Fandirk. Undead lords often have an inexplicable connection with their subordinate. It was because I sensed that they were here that I rushed over. Your Highness, we were supposed to head north after receiving the order. However, Lord Bastian said that the seal here has loosened, so he wanted us to come over to take a look. The Headless Knight's high-tier nightmare does possess the ability to fly. Fandirk is a frigid Maw Knight, so the two of them are indeed a suitable choice for scouting. Your Highness, Omar's seal has really been lifted. From the looks of it, it should be the doing of the Shilua Empire. They are simply courting death. Pass the resolution of the Parliament. From today onwards, Omar Mist will replace the missing Queen of Banshees, Heloise, as the new third senator. On the notice board outside the Parliament there was a shocking news. A newcomer suddenly stood in the Shilua Empire. The undead who didn't know of Omar were asking about the identity of this fellow who popped out of nowhere. On the other hand, those who knew of Omar were cursing the insanity of the Parliament. Damn it, is the Parliament intending to exterminate all living beings? Aren't they afraid that Omar will go on a rampage again? Now that Emperor Yongye isn't here, who can suppress that insane arrogance? From the moment I discovered the location of the two knight, I could roughly guess what had happened. However, it was still a piece of extremely bad news. In an instant, my good mood, which was high above the clouds a moment ago, plummeted to the bottom. However, since the seal has been lifted, there is no point in staying here. Since the destination is the Donlon Principality, I might as well bring the two-night back the way we came from and meet up with the Borealis at the agreed estuary. The journey back was rather smooth. However, when we reached the destination, we realized that the Borealis was entertaining guests. A gigantic octopus wrapped itself around the hull of the ship, and its poisonous ink dyed the entire sea black. On the other side, a unicorn whale was madly ramming against the hull of the ship. That white horn of the whale carried the power of the rainbow-colored elements, increasing the might of its ramming. At that moment I immediately understood the reason why we were blocked by two sea monsters. Haha, darned bastards, I won't die so easily. Since I didn't die, you guys are dead for sure. The crow, laughing maniacally in mid-air, only had half of its feathers left and its face was completely burnt, making it shockingly ugly. However, that familiar duck voice made me recognize him instantly. The Celestial Towers Cockroach No. 1, Lamos Azai, the guild leader of the Ottoman Empire branch. You sure are resilient. That day, when we were attacking, this fellow suffered a strategic-level fireball from the Mage Tower. Due to the haste of our retreat, we didn't manage to confirm the outcome of the battle. From the looks of it now, not only did he not die, he had been waiting for us after joining the Seafolk. Perhaps he followed us all the way to the estuary before gathering the sea monsters to attack us. The Queen of Storms bestowed upon me power. I am Lamos Azai, your most loyal servant. As though he was worried that he would be hit by the cannons below, he had already floated high up in the sky. The staff that carried god power was helping him control the sea monsters below. However, I was already circling above the clouds. Look, what did I discover? There is a lone astrologer here. We can try to capture it. A single astrologer can provide us with energy for a few days. They are rich in protein, but astrologers aren't easy to deal with. Their vitality is tenacious and they escape extremely quickly. Just like their brother, Lord Cockroach, they are hard to capture. So, let's slowly approach it from above and be careful not to make any noise. I caught it. It is struggling really hard. Let's chop off its head and eat the rest of its body raw. Of course, if we aren't pressed for time, we can roast it first. That way it would be more delicious. Their texture isn't bad, it tastes just like chicken. Stinky Roland, stop dubbing. You can't eat this kind of stolen goods. You will have diarrhea. Chapter 127. It is said that cockroaches are able to reproduce and escape even after losing their head. However, it is apparent that their brother, the astrologer, doesn't have this ability. Just as mentioned before, that undying Lamos, I didn't even have the chance to show his face before he was killed amidst his cursing. He was flying too high and too close to the cloud. Suddenly, 3 aerial knights descended from the clouds and attacked him simultaneously. Before he could even react, he was beheaded by Camisia, who was the fastest. Based on his strength and identity, being ganged up on by 2 frigid Maw Knight and an undead Lord-class Headless Knight can be considered as using a butcher's knife to kill a chicken. He died a worthy death. With his head chopped off and his body frozen into ice and thrown into the water, I don't believe that this fellow can climb out of his grave to find trouble with me. Furthermore, the staff he used isn't any ordinary treasure. Will of the Mistress of the Storms. Through this staff, the user chosen by the Mistress of the Storms can become her representative and summon the sea monsters under her command to serve her. Prerequisites: the believer of Lady Storm or her designated target. This is a simple wooden staff made from old oak. The workmanship and materials used are of poor quality. Other than the god power contained within, it isn't worth mentioning. System notification. Through this wooden staff, a lady who has undergone menopause for 10,000 years is able to observe the user and his surroundings. She is currently observing you. You should understand. Of course I understand. Gotcha. I knock the wooden staff on my knee and the god power staff breaks into two. The indescribable energy within it starts to dissipate. Usually, when the vessel that holds the god power is damaged, the god power would either return to the gods or return to the earth and dissipate into the world. However, this time it is slightly different. As one of the few existences who have personally come into contact with the essence of a true god's god power, I can faintly feel that the god power is circling around me, as though it is reluctant to part with me. God power doesn't have any intelligence. I don't think that the god power would be interested in me. Then, is it this? There isn't anything special about the old bottle. However, the moment I take it out, a formless god power starts to seep into it. A ripple appears at the bottom of the wave pattern on the bottle. In this world, divine power needed a carrier. Not just any random object could be used as a material for a divine artifact. Stonevilla's ocean bottle was once a divine artifact. However, with the fall of the true god, its divine power had completely dissipated over the years. Now that it had absorbed Lady Storm's divine power, it had actually recovered some of its power. Stonevilla's ocean bottle, unrated mystical item, can be upgraded, but due to the fall of its original true god, it can only reach the semi-god level at most. Calm Ocean. Upon activation, it can restore the liquid around the user to its most basic state. After absorbing the divine power of the goddess of storms, the effect of calming storms will be increased. Ocean God's favorite. The holder will become the messenger of the ancient ocean god. The holder can easily gain the trust and affection of the ancient sea people and sea monsters. When the affection reaches a higher level, the holder can attempt to sign a partnership contract. After the contract is signed, the holder can summon the holder to fight for you. Wrath of the Mistress of the Storms. That fiery lady has discovered that her divine power has been stolen, and this bottle has become the proof of her failure. The holder of this bottle will suffer the hostility of the Mistress of the Storms and will be hunted down. Osweiler's dissatisfaction. The current ocean god will pay close attention to any threat to his divine concept. Do not give him a chance to cause trouble. System notification. This is definitely a huge problem. I suggest that you immediately throw this bottle into the ocean. Of course, the rewards are also great with the risk. What will you get in exchange for offending two true gods? Do you want to know? Yeah, I don't know either. Looking at the system notification, I suck in a breath of cold air. As before, I ignored the system's malicious attempt to act cute at the end. Osweiler's dissatisfaction, and the fact that the god equipment and divine power are actively fused together is enough to explain a lot. The relationship between god equipment and divine power is usually 1-to-1. The fact that the divine power is directly fused together and that calm ocean is enough to imply a lot. Stonevilla's divine power and Lady Storm's divine power are obviously related. Furthermore, they are most likely from the same source, which is why there is such a fusion and counter-existence. This current ocean god still thinks that this bottle will threaten his divine concept. Then, what is hidden in this bottle? Is it a divine soul or a divinity? I vaguely guessed the truth. Without another word, I immediately took action. I stuffed the bottle into my inventory and activated the anti-detection magic ring. If such an item was exposed for even a moment longer, it could bring me trouble. What suggestion for me to throw him away? What big risk, big reward? System, are you trying to scam me again? You can just say that this thing is related to a huge secret. If I succeed, the reward will be huge. I definitely can't throw him away. Isn't that enough? System notification. Even if you want to earn money, you need to be alive to spend it. Are you sure you want to keep him? Alright, you have guts. Then, just wait to take on a legendary tier quest. System countdown of 10 seconds. Final confirmation. 10, 9, 1. Host has confirmed. Wait a moment, why is there a 1 after the 9? I haven't confirmed it yet. Also, what does legendary tier quest mean? Is it even scarier than an epic tier quest? At this point, if I still don't realize that I have been scammed by the system, I would really be a fool. Congratulations for triggering a legendary tier quest. Revival of the Ancient Ocean God. The Ancient Ocean God Stonevilla was once one of the strongest gods of that era. At his peak, there were several main gods under his command. That year, Lady Storm was just a rookie that couldn't even be ranked. The current ocean god Osweil's grandfather, the ancient ocean god Bose, hadn't even been born yet. The ocean that he ruled alone surpassed the entire continent. In fact, he even tried to challenge the dignity of the goddess of order. As for what the outcome was, since his bottle is in your hands, there is probably no need to say more. Although he has already fallen, due to a coincidence, the god equipment that contains his inheritance and secrets fell into your hands. Furthermore, it was activated by the god power of the same origin. Perhaps, during the twilight of the gods, the might of the ancient ocean god will make a comeback. System notice. As the difficulty of this quest is too high, based on your current strength, the possibility of completing it is extremely low. Thus, this quest has been split into 3 parts. Rewards will be calculated for each part completed, and there is no penalty for failure. There is no need for a penalty even if you fail. First quest requirement. Gather the god power related to the ocean to feed Stonevilla's ocean bottle, allowing it to evolve into a semi-god equipment. Hint: don't go looking for trouble with the ocean god right from the start. The powerful sea monsters left behind from the ancient and ancient times will have a small amount of the ocean god's god power. First quest reward. Semi-god equipment Stonevilla's ocean bottle, 100,000 fate point. Additional rewards depend on the completion of the quest. The basic reward for the first quest is 100,000 fate points. Then wouldn't it be 400,000 to 500,000 fate points if it was really completed? Back then, it wasn't easy for me to complete the epic tier quest. I spent so much effort and even killed a demon count, but it only gave me 120,000 fate points. But thinking about it from another angle, a demon count would appear in an epic tier quest. What kind of enemy would I meet in a legendary tier quest? Let's do it. The courageous will be stuffed to death and the timid will starve to death. With these fate points, not only will I be able to catch up with the progress of my plans, I can even bring them forward. My hesitation, in the eyes of Camisia and Fanderk, became my worry for the current situation. Your Highness, do you need us to make a move? Even though Lamos I, the one who drove the sea monsters to attack the Borealis, has died, the battle on the ocean didn't stop. On the contrary, due to the loss of their controller, the sea monsters fought instinctively, becoming even more intense and bloody. Giant octopuses are the most commonly seen sea monsters. In fact, they can't even be called sea monsters anymore. However, a gigantic creature that is 100 to 200 meters long is definitely a super sea monster. In front of it, even the sturdy and massive sea giants are just delicious food. The octopus in front of us is a snow-white ice magic beast. In the Bellow Sea where it often appears, it has the nickname of Despairing Living Iceberg. No matter what kind of ship encounters it, it will be dragged into the deep sea and drown. Covered in a thick ice armor, it looks very beautiful. If it were to shrink countless times, it might even become the darling of a noble lady. However, with its poisonous ink, it is actually extremely dangerous and fatal. When it realized that it was unable to drag the warship into the sea, half of the giant octopus's body wrapped around the Borealis, starting to display its superiority in close combat. Ice-cold magic continuously froze the seawater around the Borealis. Its tentacles, which are filled with suction cups, lashed at the body of the ship like whip. Some of the tentacles are even wielding iceberg-like ice blades and chunks of ice. Its poisonous ink is even spewing out like a torrential rain. Naturally, the Borealis isn't idle either. Its heavy cannons, which are laced with corrosive poison, continue to bombard the giant octopus with it. Even though the poison is ineffective against the ice armor of the giant octopus due to its attribute restraints, the bombardment of over 100 cannons still manage to leave the giant octopus with wounds all over its body. Its left eye has already been blasted apart. Under its ice armor, there are countless wounds that haven't been healed in time. The gigantic beasts are slow and robust. The battle between them often relies on their innate physical talents to fight head-on. There aren't any tricks that they can play. From our point of view, the battle between these gigantic beasts is quite similar to a street brawl between hoodlums. The giant octopus that is riding on the warship, wielding an ice blade and continuously striking the ship, is quite similar to the hysterical lady who used a small purse to smash the heartless man. The poisonous ink and spitting saliva are extremely similar. On the other hand, the narwhal on the other side has a completely different appearance. It is a brawny man wielding a 1,000-pound hammer, looking for an opportunity to deal a fatal blow. Whales are one of the largest natural sea beasts. The appearance of the narwhal is just an enlarged version of an ordinary whale. The part of the monster that floats on the surface of the water is at least a dozen stories tall. From head to tail, it is at least 300 meters tall. Its gigantic body creates an incomparable might. Just a flick of its tail is able to bring about a huge wave. When it lowers its head and charges, it is even more violent. In front of the narwhal, the super warship Borealis is just like a skinny dwarf. Every time it charges, it would bring about an impact that could topple the mountains and overturn the seas. That gigantic horn of the narwhal is like a sharp blade, multiplying the threat of the narwhal. Just by looking at the situation on the battlefield, the Borealis is completely suppressed and could disintegrate at any moment. It is no wonder that the two knights suggested for us to intervene and help. However, I shook my head. The battle before us isn't suitable for us to intervene, and there is no need for us to intervene. There is no need. Don't look down on that ship. That is the brother of your captain. Hearing that, the two of them were stunned for a moment. Then, the Death Knight Fandrik exclaimed in surprise. Again? Your Highness, Omar has just escaped. You have created all sorts of weird things again. You won't lose control this time, right? Before he could finish his words, Camisia hurriedly covered Fandrik's mouth. Fool, have you forgotten that His Highness hates it when people criticize his creations? He treats them as his own children. If you scold his children to his face, do you think he won't find a chance to teach you a lesson? Also, what do you mean by all sorts of weird things? If these words were to reach Captain Bastion's ears, how do you think he would deal with you? Do you still want to be a clown and ride a wheelbarrow through a ring of fire? Or do you want to wear a lion costume and give balloons to those naughty kids to play with? If you are courting death, don't drag me down with you. Last time, those naughty kids kicked my head around like a ball. Right, whenever I think about it, I get so angry. Back then, I clearly asked for help. Why didn't you help me? Instead, you made a headless knight chase after my own head, and I even had to be careful not to hurt anyone. Do you know how uncomfortable it was? Back then, when we saw the ball chirping so happily and those naughty kids were so happy, everyone was happy. We thought that you were having fun with those naughty kids, so we could relax a little. The last time, old List's ribs were stolen by those naughty kids. Afterwards, he was found in the pit where stray dogs sold the leftovers of his lunch. That fermented smell. If it gets to that point, I would rather fight a final battle with the Holy Church. Thinking about the Red Hunting Hound's punishment of having fun with those naughty kids, thinking about those naughty kids that even gods and demons would avoid, my most righteous knight subdued without hesitation. That, Your Highness, I apologize for my slip of the tongue. Please don't take it to heart. Originally, I was indeed a little angry that my darling was criticized. However, when I thought about Omar who successfully rebelled just a few years after his birth, and how we might be able to meet again very soon, I didn't have the mood to take it to heart. In order to allow them to reach the pinnacle independently, after designing the optimal path for them to become stronger, I didn't impose any restrictions on them. All I did was to give them sufficient space to develop. Was such a laissez-faire method wrong? Omar, now that I have calmed down and thought back on what happened back then, it was all my fault. I shook my head. Envy Borealis and Pride Omar were two completely different things. Envy was just a modification of a ship. No matter how strong it was just an individual. On the other hand, Omar was different. He was able to create the strongest army by himself. At his peak, he was able to fight against the attacks of the other deadly sins by himself. The head of the deadly sins, the sin of pride, was designed from the very start to be the leader of the 7 deadly sins and my adjutant. From the moment he was born, he was already extremely unique. His overly high expectations created excessive arrogance and ambition. Being too young, he lacked self-control and rationality. Although his abilities were outstanding, his temperament wasn't mature enough to be independent. When it was finally decided that Bastion would become the commander of my army, Omar had long regarded the position as something that he deserved. To Omar, who was the incarnation of pride, his life had always been smooth sailing, but a single setback was so huge. How could the young sin of pride bear such a huge psychological blow? After that, he flipped the table like a naughty kid who lost and used his own ability to rebel. What ability is that? While I was thinking back on the past, the situation of the battle below had changed. The battered Borealis suddenly shone with a green light. Then, the surrounding seawater bypassed the obstruction of the ice layer and rushed towards it. Bathed in seawater, the surroundings of the warship glowed even brighter. Then, the damaged skin and parts of the warship began to automatically regenerate. After 10 seconds, when the seawater returned and the green light faded, the Borealis, which was covered in patches just a moment ago, looked brand new, as if it had just left the factory. Wasn't this familiar? This was the 9-headed dragon's signature ability, the self-regeneration ability that gave us such a headache back then. The Borealis finally began its counterattack. Its first target was the huge single-horned whale that was charging towards it again. The dragon head statue at the bow of the warship shone with a red light. The power of envy, that had been stored on the warship for a long time, finally reached its activation condition and began to activate. The red light struck the whale with a single horn, causing it to instantly roll around in the water in pain. Right after that, the ferocious image of the 9-headed dragon emperor flashed across the whale's head. As the whale trembled all over, the gigantic horn suddenly flew off and a gigantic bloody hole appeared on the whale's head. Fresh blood spurted out, instantly dyeing the seawater red. On the other side, several seconds later, the gigantic horn floated to the bow of the Borealis and automatically linked together. From then on, the Borealis had the strongest natural collision horn. Envy? It's because of comparison. Nobody can be perfect. It's normal to meet someone who is stronger than you in a certain aspect. It's even more normal to feel envy and unwillingness. If the envy is moderate, it can motivate one to work hard to catch up. This is often called motivation. If the envy is excessive, it will become resentment towards others. At that time, the resentment will become the most dangerous envy. The butterfly has beautiful wings, but I don't. That's why I was jealous, so I tore off her wings and made her into a specimen. This way, I would have a delightful collection and the butterfly would no longer annoy me by flying all over the sky. Eagles have beautiful wings that allow them to soar in the blue sky. We humans aren't born with wings, but we still dream of flying in the sky. That's why, through the hard work of countless people, we have aircraft that mimic their appearance. And my Borealis, the envy of the 7 deadly sins, is a combination of the 2 types of envy. If he was envious of the butterfly's wings, he would directly tear off the butterfly's wings and attach them to his body. That way, he would be able to fly. Although the design of this envy wasn't easy, I already had a backup plan and the technology was already in place. The biggest problem up until now had always been the materials. After all, in order to assemble different parts, one would need to have a source of power to make them work. And it would already be a miracle if the opposing magic power didn't explode. How would it be possible to make all the different organs function normally? Don't tell me that I have to prepare a power source and interface for all the parts and organs? Then what's the point of stealing? However, the nine-headed dragon's heart and his legendary ranked nine-colored teardrop stone perfectly solved this problem. Actually, the nine-headed dragon wasn't considered strong among dragons. He only had 2 talents that I was interested in. One of them was self-regeneration, and the other was his compatibility with different elements of magic power. Each of the nine-headed dragon's 9 heads had different elements, but under the control of a single source of magic power, he was able to use breath of 9 different elements. It was as if he was an archmage with 9 jobs. I had already revealed the secret behind this to the town security. Legendary ranked 9-colored teardrop stone allows magic power of the same origin to freely change its attributes after passing through it. The simple explanation of the system couldn't hide the noble identity of the semi-god 9-headed dragon. After some research and adjustments, the 9-headed dragon's heart and the 9-colored teardrop stone were able to display the advantage of being a universal power source, becoming the power source and conversion device of the envy combination. Judging from the successful process of stealing the horn of the narwhal and the successful fusion process, the design of envy had already succeeded. This sudden battle was already nearing its end. When the strongest warship of the Ottoman Empire fused with my necromancy creation, when science and magic came together, the strongest monster warship of this era was born. The horn of the narwhal was connected to its skull. That was its strongest point, but it was also its greatest weakness. Now that it had lost its horn, even if it were to be left alone, it wouldn't be far from death. Seeing that its comrade was about to die and that the envoy of Lady Storm, who drove it to battle, was nowhere to be seen, the snow octopus released the warship without hesitation and started to escape. Let's go, I'm afraid that we still have some work to do. Yes, Envy had used his untested talent in his first real battle. I'm afraid that the interior of the warship is in a mess now. I have to quickly make some adjustments. But when I walked to the front, Camisia and Fanderk didn't follow me. They stopped. Your Highness, isn't it a little inappropriate for us to be like this? Let's just follow the warship. Actually, it's the same. I was stunned for a moment before coming to a realization. So they were hesitating because of their undead identity and were worried that they wouldn't be able to get along with the living. Unlike Sulphur Mountain City, which was already used to undead, the humans on the surface had a long history of fear and hatred towards the undead. It was normal for a holy knight to rush up to kill an undead upon seeing one. Camisia and Fanderk's worries weren't unfounded. But in response to their hesitation, I resolutely shook my head. Let's go. An ugly daughter-in-law will eventually have to meet her parents-in-law. There are some things that are easier to be exposed the more you hide it. The more lies you spread, the harder it will be to clean up. Since it is fated that we can't hide it, we might as well do it openly right from the start. Just like the river Styx, the heaven's pillar seems to go straight up, but in reality, it has to pass through countless different planes to reach the god realm of the various true gods. Among the many god realms of the different planes, there is one that is exceptionally deserted. While the other god realms would receive countless souls every day, there are only a few souls that enter this plane in a month. The god realm of the law god Womians. Unless the owner invites it, invading the god realm is the most severe act of war. Womian's god realm hasn't received any visitors so far. In fact, no one, not even the gods, knows what Womian's looks like. The massive god realm is empty. The petitioners that should be used to provide the power of faith are wandering aimlessly. There isn't even a single god envoy to maintain order here. The law god and the god of holy light have both lost their sense of self. That unlucky Basra was actually thrown to the law god Womians. Looks like the goddess of moonlight is furious. Perhaps this is a secret of the gods in the mortal world. However, among the gods and their servants, it is a fact that everyone knows. Longtu Basra, who was the target of the goddess of moonlight's wrath, became the unlucky fellow in everyone's eyes. Basra had been bored in the god realm for so many days and really thought that he had been abandoned. However, he suddenly found out that he was summoned by the true god Womians. Don't be too surprised when you see Womians. While waiting for the summon, Basra couldn't help but recall the mysterious words that the goddess of moonlight said a few days ago. However, it is a pity. Even if he has 3 heads and 6 arms, he can't scare me, Basra. When he really saw Womians, in order to prevent himself from shouting out rudely, he almost pinched off the flesh on his thigh. In order to prevent the shock in his heart from showing on his face, Basra's usually calm face was forcefully twisted into a ball. The reason? Womians didn't wear a mask in the god realm. Wasn't this face that he saw not too long ago? Basra, follow my will and become my envoy. Arrive in the mortal world. When Basra walked out of the god palace, his legs, which should never get tired in theory, felt weak. This hero who had never retreated from hundreds of battles was afraid. He finally understood the feeling of being cannon fodder in a war. This time, you guys are really playing big. However, since we are already on the pirate ship, let's play to the end. Chapter 128. Shut down valves 17 to 30 immediately. The 3rd engine room is on fire. Evacuate the crew. Where's the firefighting team? There's no such personnel? Forget it, find an ice mage. Also no? Is Princess Renee around? The port cabin C-15-21 is leaking. Where's the repairman? Also no? Alright, freeze the leaking area and wait for it to stabilize before proceeding with the repairs. Has Princess Renee gone to the engine room? Knight Eloin, it's your turn. What? Your frigid maw is a snowman that only knows how to fight and not freeze? Papaya head, what's the use of keeping you if you're so useless? Tie yourself and the snowman to the hole to block the water. Where did those darned engineers go? What? They ran to the bow of the ship to look at the newly installed ram? Isn't that the innate ability of this ship? They don't even know magic, so what can they see? What? They went to look at it because it's illogical? That bunch of bastards, Your Highness Grim, please help me bring them back. No, you don't have to do anything. I should say please don't do anything. As long as you stand beside them, they will return on their own. Red alert, what happened? What? Knight Eloin really tied himself and the snowman to the hole and was washed away? I was just complaining and making an analogy. He actually did it? That papaya head. Damn it, someone get Tracy to fish up that foolish knight. I'm already busy enough and he's still causing trouble. Your Highness Renee, please head to the bridge. Someone is looking for you there. That. Lady Diana, I know that you're very agitated and want to find an enemy to fight, but can you not stand in the middle of the corridor in full armor and obstruct our work? I've already received dozens of reports, all of them complaining about being scratched by your expensive armor and obstructing our work. That legendary half-dragon beast King Hunter on the deck. The battle is already over. Your great beast-taming art isn't effective. Die and come back. I almost succeeded. Passing on love takes time. Also, can you blame me for this failure? You said you love him while beating him up. Is there any possibility of that? Well, a certain indescribable man's voice was so striking even in the midst of chaos. Kelly and Harlow's voices echoed in the cabin. A bunch of weirdos were either helping or hindering them. In any case, none of them were idling around. Regardless of how well designed the Borealis was and how powerful it was in theory, it was still a new ship that had not experienced the test of actual combat. Furthermore, it was facing two super sea monsters for the first time in a battle of attrition, which was too difficult for it. It seems that I was too confident in envy. It wasn't just the sea monster that was pushed to its limits, the Borealis was probably at its limits as well. Actual combat was always the most effective platform for testing. The first to show problems were always shortcomings and weaknesses. Under the attacks of the octopus and the narwhal, the places that were not covered by the undead transformation naturally could not heal and regenerate. The places where the energy pipes were not solid enough and the design was not effective were also riddled with holes. As the soul of the warship, Envy was still a newborn baby in the long life of an undead. It was still unable to stand on its own. Maintaining all of the heavy cannons and controlling the fleet consumed all of its energy. Using its self-healing talent repeatedly consumed a large portion of its magic power. These flaws weren't much of a problem. From a prototype to a real battle-ready model, it had to constantly expose and fix its flaws. However, if it were to be destroyed in an actual battle, there would probably be no future for it. Little Roland is back? That's great. Hurry up and help out on the port deck. It is still leaking. I was sent on a mission the moment I arrived. Yet, I smiled. Kelly, don't just grab me to be your helper. There are two old acquaintances here who can listen to your commands. Fanderk is also a frigid Maw Knight. Even though Casimias is foolish, he still has some strength despite his foolishness. Aren't they? Alright, I understand. It has been a long time since we last met. On behalf of the Mist Country, I welcome your return. However, this isn't the time to reminisce. Little Fanderk, please help me freeze the leaking areas. Sir Casimias, please help adjust the sails on the deck. Big Sister Kelly? It's great that you are fine. Hearing the familiar voice, Fanderk was a little agitated. However, he calmed down soon after. All right, we will do our best. As for Casimias, he was a man of action. The moment he finished speaking, he had already set off. However, from his energetic appearance and the phrase, "Welcome back," he was still very happy. That day, the signature Ice Aeon was displayed. How could the divine might of Emperor Yongye's signature Black Skeleton King be hidden? Furthermore, the war flag of the Red Hunting Hounds had been the Mist war flag for many years. The rumor that Emperor Yongye was the Holy Knight Roland had been circulating among the upper echelons of the human race. In the eyes of those who were observant, it was probably impossible to hide my identity. I didn't doubt that there would be people who would guess that I was Emperor Yongye, especially after it was revealed that I was an undead lich. At the very least, Kelly definitely knew about it. Of course, some things wouldn't be good if they were to be exposed. If Donglan was really related to Emperor Yongye, there would definitely be a lot of trouble. Since they didn't intend to expose it, then so be it. Perhaps it was due to their mutual assistance in the midst of the storm, or perhaps it was because they had expected it. The two undead knights were quickly accepted by the crowd. However, the crowd was more or less an exaggeration. Needless to say, the gentlemen of the underground world were mostly used to interacting with the undead. The knight of the Donglan kingdom was a little surprised to see the undead knight who had stepped forward to help them. However, after realizing that the two intelligent undead were actually the heroic knight of their predecessors, their attitude changed. After Kelly and Rene pulled them aside and said something to them, especially after seeing the iconic Frigid Maw mount, the initial guarded attitude of the undead turned into reverence. Every day, I could see the knight surrounding the two undead knight to ask for advice. Casimias and Fanderk also happily imparted their experiences and battle techniques to the younger generation of knight. Looking at this situation, I heaved a sigh of relief. After all, it was a gamble to allow the undead to head to the kingdom of the living. However, since the knight was able to get along well with the undead knight, it could be considered as a good start. Of course, this was also due to the fact that the gods were busy with the start of the Holy War. If it wasn't for the fact that the Donlon Kingdom believed in the absolute and just God of law as the national religion, I wouldn't have considered such a shocking proposal from the start. Even after the underground dwellers and the people of Donlon were able to accept the two-night, I still said that the people accept the undead night was an exaggeration because of the Ottoman Kingdom. In most of the human kingdoms, the Donlon Principality was a border barbarian country. From the very start, they had drifted away from the mainstream of human society. Furthermore, due to the incident in the past, their relationship with the various countries and the churches of the gods was poor. Due to the historical records, Definder was once the land of the dead, and the Royal Knight Order became the Undead Knight Order to take revenge on their enemies. They didn't view the undead as much. Furthermore, the two Undead Knight were historical heroes of the Mist Country, and with the guarantee of the Mist royalty, it wasn't difficult for them to get along with the undead. On the other hand, the Ottoman Kingdom was one of the major human empires. Ever since they were young, they were taught that the undead were evil and the enemies of the living. Furthermore, due to the undead calamity 100 years ago and the pressure brought by the Shiloh Empire, the churches of the gods repeatedly propagated them to accept that staying on the same ship with the undead was no different from being locked in a cage with a tiger. This was the mainstream view of human society. Anything that was related to the undead was evil, and the undead emperor was the most evil of all evil. Thus, on the second day, I received more than 30 complaints. There were even more than 10 people who changed their minds and decided to disembark. Why don't we just fly along with them? The past few days have already been enjoyable. After all, it is normal for the living to be different from the dead. The two knight who were hiding under their cloaks requested to leave, but I shook my head in rejection. This was all within my expectations, and I had already made up my mind long ago. Take off your cloaks and live your lives openly, just like how you did in Sulphur Mountain City. You don't owe this world anything, and you don't owe anyone anything. On the contrary, this evil world owes you a lot. My words caused the two knight to lower their heads, but they didn't say anything to refute or agree. I knew that they were still hesitating, afraid that their appearance would cause a flaw in my plan. Since we have already decided to walk down this path, there is no possibility of turning back. Since we intend to create a Sulphur Mountain City on the surface, so that the innocent won't be discriminated against or punished because of their race and identity, this is equivalent to breaking away from the mainstream thinking of this world. There will be many difficulties, and this obstacle is just an appetizer. We have to overcome it. Since those who should leave will leave sooner or later, there is no need for us to care about it. Those who walk different paths can't make plans together. In reality, since we are already on different paths, we won't be able to work together even if we want to. If they want to leave, then let them leave. From the very start, I only need those who walk the same path. Winter always comes early in the north. In the common sense of the Northlanders, before the long and arduous winter arrives, they have to prepare rations to tide through the winter and make preparations to guard against the beast hordes. The beast hordes in winter are the hardest to deal with. Hunger will drive them crazy, and the result of the snow sealing the mountains is that they will gather in groups and challenge the human cities at all costs. Anyway, there isn't much difference between dying of starvation and dying in battle. Rather than starving to death or freezing to death, they might as well take a gamble. When the Mist Kingdom was at its peak, they would take the initiative to clear out the beast hordes around the cities, and even in the snowy mountains. On one hand, they would hunt some prey for winter food, and on the other hand, they would do their best to reduce the number of beasts to a certain level to reduce the pressure that the cities might face during winter. When winter really comes, it is the knight's favorite winter hunting season. At that time, even if it isn't for rations, the knight would still take the initiative to hunt and disperse the beast hordes. When there isn't any war, the winter hunting is the best stage to display one's strength. Every year, there would be a knight heading deep into the mountains in search of powerful beasts as prey. However, The current Donglan Principality no longer has the strength to do so. The lack of rations and ferocious beasts are still a sharp sword hanging over their heads. Every winter is exceptionally difficult to endure. In this world where the strong preys on the weak, a small country without any fighting strength will only grow weaker and weaker. The war 20 years ago caused the Donglan Principality to lose its last piece of demonic gold mine, and its days became even more difficult to endure. Sorrowing, an ordinary small town near the capital of the Donglan Principality, defined her. While the plains of the Ottoman Empire are still in the midst of warm summer, here it is already beginning to fall. In the past, this was the busiest time of the year, the harvest season that brings joy and sorrow to the people. Being able to harvest rations naturally makes people happy. However, if the harvest isn't good most of the time, there would be sorrow in the midst of joy. Half of the time in the northern lands is winter, and coupled with the frozen soil, it is normal for the crops that barely ripen once a year to be lacking in harvest. This harvest often determines whether or not one will be able to survive the difficult winter. Every year, at this time, everyone's mood isn't very good. But this year, even though the harvest isn't good, the situation is slightly different. Don't worry, we have it all, we have it all. The young warrior with the royal emblem is happily distributing the rations. When there isn't enough rations, it is normal for the royal family and the local nobles to come and provide disaster relief. However, the royal family isn't rich to begin with, and they can't buy much rations either. Although the military nobles of the northern lands are famous for being able to fight, they are also famous for being extremely poor. They even have to think of ways to get their own rations through the winter. Thus, the rations distributed every year will run out soon, and every year's winter is still a difficult time. In the past, the distribution of rations was like a war, with everyone trying their best to be first. But this time, they really lined up neatly. The reason? There are more than 10 carriages and a small mountain of supplies behind the warrior. Since there is enough to distribute, there is naturally no need to fight over it. Princess Renée's visit to the Ottoman Empire this time was very successful. Not only did she raise the prestige of our country, she also won a lot of rations and supplies for us. Everyone, don't worry, we have it all. There are rations, new clothes, and quilt. This is completely different from how they usually look at the lack of rations and frown. This time, the joyful young warrior distributes rations and promotes the grace of the royal family. Brother Knight, can you give little Ailey some more rations? Last year, you only gave little Ailey a bag of rice, and little Ailey was so hungry in the end. The young warrior is stunned. He still remembers the 7 or 8-year-old green-haired little girl. Last year, she came with her mother. Seeing that the little girl and her mother were starving, he gave some of his rations to her. At that time, even though the rations they received were still not much, the mother and daughter thanked him profusely and left. Little girl, I can give you a little more this year, but your family is an adult. Ailey is still so young, how can he let this child come and collect rations alone? 2 years ago, Daddy was bitten to death by a pack of wolves while protecting Mommy and me. Mommy gave little Ailey all her food last winter, and in the end, she didn't survive. Now, little Ailey is the only one left in little Ailey's family. But Mommy has taught little Ailey how to sew, so little Ailey can make a living by sewing clothes. Children of the poor take charge of the household at an early age. Even though she is only 7 or 8 years old, this poor little Ailey speaks like a little adult. However, she doesn't know that she can't even sew her own dolls well, so how can she earn money? It's just that the little girl doesn't eat much, so the surrounding neighbors try to take turns to help this pitiful but strong little girl. Hearing the quiet, grievous news, the warrior is immediately stunned, as if something is stuck in his chest. He can't speak for a long time, and in the end, he can only sigh. After all, he has experienced too many such misfortunes in this land. Even if he is filled with passion, how much can he help? In the face of endless misfortune, he has long become numb. This land has been barren for many years, and he is only a warrior. The only thing he can do is perhaps to hunt for more prey. Perhaps there are enemies of little Ailey among them. The rations are a little heavy. I don't think little Ailey can carry them. Little Ailey can play in the plaza for a while. After the rations are distributed, I will help you carry them home. All right, thank you, Brother Knight. Then little Ailey will go to the Gemini Plaza to play. See you under the statue later. The young warrior with a face full of pimples looks at the figure of the still strong little girl skipping away. He shakes his head, sets his thoughts aside, and continues to distribute the rations. Looks like I still have to distribute all my rations this year. Oh right, since it is the autumn harvest, there should be field mice in the fields, right? Go dig some weeds and tree root. I can also sneak into the kitchen to steal some. Hey, the brawny man over there, aren't you embarrassed to take so much by yourself? Share some with the others. What? You are helping that old lady to take it? My bad. Thus, the impetuous young warrior hurriedly apologizes for his mistake. Little Ailey loves the Gemini Plaza, not only because it is the place where her parents met and fell in love, but also because there is a beautiful statue there. Her mother used to tell her many stories under the statue. The color of the old statue has already faded, but the heroic posture of the two young knights on it is still as striking as ever. The one standing slightly taller is the elder brother. He raises the magnificent longsword that is the embodiment of the Mist Kingdom's authority and charges forward angrily. Nothing can stop him. At this moment, his silver armor is stained with the blood of the enemy leader. The one standing below is a valiant young warrior. He holds a flaming magic staff in one hand and a huge sword in the other. He seems to be chanting some kind of mysterious incantation. The two golden-haired youths who seem to be only 13 or 14 years old. The faces of the two statues are exactly the same, clearly indicating that they are twins. Even though the statue is already rotten to the point where the elder brother is missing an arm and the younger brother is missing a leg, their unyielding will is evident. While the rest of the plaza is covered in fallen leaves and dust, the surroundings are clean and tidy. This is enough to prove the uniqueness of this statue. This is the symbol of the Donlon Principality, the twin statues that can be seen in almost every city. From a certain perspective, they are also the embodiment of the Mist People's unyielding will and guardian spirits. Recently, in order to boost the morale of the citizens, Princess Renee has been trying her best to imitate one of them. That big knight brother, this is for you. Please continue to protect our city. What Ailey placed under the statue is half a piece of black bread. This is the last of her rations. She remembers that in the past, her mother did this too. When she was young, Ailey's mother would tell her stories, and the story of these two big knight brothers is the most repeated one. Even though she can't remember the content of the story clearly, little Ailey remembers that in the end, it was always the big knight brother who chased away the bad guys and protected everyone. She also remembers that this is what her mother said back then. Under the efforts of the princes, the demons and beastmen were chased back to their homeland. The greedy neighboring country's king and the hypocritical church received their punishment. Everyone lived a happy life once again. But Ailey is still hungry. Is this a happy life? She still remembers the bitter smile on her father's face back then. That is because Daddy is useless, unable to give you a happy life. But believe in Daddy, as long as we meet with danger, Daddy will be like the twin knight brothers who sacrificed their lives for the country, risking their lives to protect you and Mommy, as well as everyone else. She still remembers the blissful smile on her mother's face back then. Martin, I believe that you are the best knight. If you really meet with danger, you will definitely try your best to fulfill your vow. She still remembers how heartbroken her mother was when her father fulfilled his vow. Silly Martin, I don't want any knight brothers, I just want you to come back. When will these bitter days come to an end? She still remembers how her mother still managed to smile before her death last year. Little Ailey, don't hate this world, and don't hate this country. His Majesty the King died in battle, and Princess Renee took up the mantle at the age of 14. The Mist royal family has already sacrificed everything to fulfill their vow to protect the country. What else do we have to complain about? But remember the words that your father loved to say when he was alive: hope is always at the end of despair. As long as the Mist flag flies, we, the people of Mist, will never give up on hope. Little Ailey, Mommy and Daddy are useless, unable to give you a decent life. But please face life with a smile. As long as you work hard, there will be a day when you meet hope. Who knows, the twin stars might descend once more to save this country that is on the verge of destruction. She still remembers how hard she tried to remember those words back then, but she couldn't remember them all. The one that left the deepest impression in her mind was the twin stars who wanted to save the country. Big Brother Knight, perhaps you won't come to save this country next year. But please bless Ailey to survive this winter, and also Grandpa Margie, Big Brother Colorado, and Aunt Annie. Right, and Lulu, even though she always bullies me, please bless her so that she can play with me next year. Please don't blame her. She doesn't have a daddy or a mommy, so please bless. And bless that kind Big Brother Knight over there. Little Ailey recited over 100 names in a single breath, including the little yellow dog that had bitten her. While she was still trying hard to think of other names that required blessings, her prayers that had never been answered before were answered for the first time. Yes, next year, this country will be saved by the twin stars. Yes, everyone will be blessed. At the very least, no one will starve to death. Yes, at the very end of despair, there will definitely be a sliver of hope. When the Mist flag flies once more, all of the Mist citizens will be saved. As soon as those words fell, the figure that flashed by and that familiar face caused little Ailey to exclaim in shock. Big Brother Knight! At this moment, the young warrior had finally finished distributing the rations. Carrying his and little Ailey's rations, he walked over. However, what greeted him was a flustered little Ailey. Big Brother Knight! It's Big Brother Knight! Big Brother Knight has come back to life. He said that he will bless everyone and save this country. Following little Ailey's finger, the elder brother in the sculpture of the twin stars was pointing the Roland sacred sword in his hand into the distance. The young warrior Clower was taken aback for a moment before nodding his head with a smile. Prince Roland will forever protect the Mist country. The will of the Mist will never yield to him.